Welcome to the Pow Wow with Mayra, where each week we bring you an inspiring person and their stories to help us discover different ways to see life and its challenges. My focus sits on being thoughtful, engaging, and entertaining. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So I want to know more of LaNell.
Mm-hmm.
You previously were my broker in real estate. And so I want to know more of LaNell pre when I met you. So where do you come from? Where were you born? And how did you get to a little bit of where you are now?
Okay, well...
and then we'll go from there.
Okay. I was born in Fort Worth, so I'm a native here. I've moved back and forth in between Dallas and Fort Worth a lot as a younger person. Grew up on, I call it the edge of the hood. Grew up in Southeast Fort Worth and grew up kind of hard, impoverished area. And didn't realize it until I grew up and moved away. And then I started seeing,
The world.
wow, this is a really difficult neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard neighborhood. I never had any problems in the neighborhood. But I grew up with my grandmother and she was retired on a fixed income. So we just didn't have a lot. So I started working when I was 16, worked 2 jobs, went to high school. Decided to start taking real estate courses when I was 18. And took, 4 classes back then. It was 4 different classes at TCJC, now known as TCC.
TCJC.
Yeah, it used to be Tarrant County Junior College. Now it's just Tarrant County College. Yeah. I answered an ad in a newspaper. I moved out when I was 18, was working 2 full-time jobs. And back then, you had to look in classifieds to get a job. And so I answered an ad in a newspaper to sit on a house. And I was like, well, what does that mean? What do you do to sit on a house? So I called, and it was to sit in a model home. And at that time, I was 19. I was almost 20. Okay. Did not have my real estate license yet. I had taken my classes. Okay. So I went for the interview. And I walked into the home. The home was 84.9. And it was in Euless, a brand new home. And I walked in and I was like, how could anybody ever afford this? My view of money was so limited. And I was, my mentality was hourly, working hourly. $3.50 an hour, I think, or $3.05 an hour. I can't remember now. Was the going rate back then. So if you got a job making $6 an hour, you were doing great, and that's what this job paid. So I went in. It was for Tuesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and he didn't give me the job. So a couple of days later, I called him back, and I just asked him, where we stood on the job, and he goes, well, I'm still interviewing people. And I said, well, I just want you to know, I have never went on an interview and not gotten the job. And he goes, okay, you're hired. And that was the start of my real estate career.
Wow.
Yeah. And I worked there for 2 years, and he trained me. His name was, can I say his name?
Yes.
Carl Ware with Sovereign Homes.
Okay.
And he trained me, taught me things I still use today in real estate.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Fundamentals, it sounds like.
Yes. And then he ended up being the vice president, I believe, of a division of the Sovereign Homes company before they went out of business. And so I was trained by some very high-end salespeople, very talented people. So I was very blessed, And I just started seeing life differently. I remember somebody walked into to the model home and they bought 2 of the most expensive homes cash for 1,099. That was the 2-story we had
in Euless.
in Euless. He rode up on a bicycle and had flip-flops on. And he bought one for his mom and one for himself. And I just started seeing money very differently. I was like, it really is just a perspective. And just when I got used to that and really got used to that price point, which back then, the median price of a home was $85,000. So, it was still a higher end,
yes.
back then. They moved me to a $345,000 model out in Willow Bend in Plano, which there was nothing there. There was one Kroger and like one light. And now it's just like everything is out there.
A whole city.
Yeah, it's just, I can't even find where the model was. Like, because it's just.
So much developed has happened since.
It's just crazy. So then I got to see a different side. I started seeing very high-end buyers, and it just really
another
changed.
tier.
Yeah, it just changed my perspective, and I was like, it really never ends.
So as you were looking at these different perspectives, did you look somewhere else for information or education or inspiration, or it all happened within what you saw in your job line?
It was more in the job line. We didn't have the internet back then.
Right.
And while I was sitting on site, there was this lady that walked in. Her name was Jane Stathis. She's still in the industry. She does loans. And she walked in, and she was an agent, and she had her suit on and her matching heels, and she just she knew stuff, I was like, I want to be like her, So I called her to see if she would take me on as an agent. And she said normally they only use, she was the first new home finding company in the state of Texas.
No way.
Yeah. So
she just landed right there.
She started in 1985, and I think I met her in 1990 because I was pregnant with my oldest daughter. Okay. And so I called her, and she said normally we want someone that has at least 2 years experience, because she was a flat fee broker. And back then there were no flat fee brokers. It was 50-50. If you wanted to make more money, you sold more homes. Okay. So she took me on, and I was able to raise my 3 children in real estate and make a really good living.
And here you are.
And here I am 35 years later.
Still helping people make their dreams come true with home ownership.
Yes. It's really a lot of fun. So I think the biggest compliment that I've received was I had sold a home like 32 years ago. At the time, it was 29 years later, the customer reached back out to me. Wow. Yeah. They looked me up on the internet, and I was still doing real estate, and I ended up selling that same home that I sold to them that they had already paid off, and then got them into another home.
Wow. 29. Talk about
years later.
Customer retention, taking care of your customers, how that pays off in ways and times that you just don't even know.
I would have never expected something like that.
Right.
Yeah. And it was just very, very humbling.
Yeah.
Very.
Well, that says a lot about you. They looked you up, and
that they even remembered my name.
Seriously.
Cool.
Seriously.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
So I wanna take it back to LaNell in Fort Worth. You mentioned you grew up with your grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
How did you end up living with your grandmother?
So my mother, and she was my paternal grandmother, and I was estranged from my father. So my mother always stayed in contact with her. So I was with her most of the time. In my young life, I have 3 other sisters. But in my young life, I was with my grandparents, or my grandmother and great-grandmother most of the time. My great-grandmother died when I was 8. And so after that, I moved. Well, I'm not going to say I officially lived there. I just stayed there a lot when I was young.
Okay.
Okay. But then once my great grandmother died, my grandmother was working.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up staying with my mom more.
Okay.
Okay. And then when I was 12, my mother gave me away.
Your mother gave you away.
My mother gave me to her.
To her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about your other sisters?
So they were a lot older than me. Well, I'm not going to say a lot. They were 5 to 6 years, 5.5 to 6.5 years older than me.
Okay.
So because of that, they were already older teenagers. So they were already on their way out of the house, and
okay.
you know.
Okay.
So
How was that? How was that experience? Or that, like, when you think back and it's you get you get notified. That's a good question. How did the news got broken to you to where, hey, you're going to be living with your grandma?
She called me. I stayed with my grandmother for the summer, and then she called me and just told me she was going to leave me there. And, for a long time, I couldn't talk about this without crying. But, as an adult, I see it very differently because I did not want to stay with my grandmother.
You did not?
No, my grandmother was, God rest her soul. I know she knows better now, but she was not a very nice person. So she was very, very difficult.
Difficult. Okay.
So, very emotionally abusive, with words and,
Did you have any rules at home?
I was a good kid. I mean, I did teenage stuff like everybody, but, I was a pretty good kid, so I didn't really get in trouble a lot. It was more about, I think I've always had a direct connection, if you will, with God. I know it comes directly from Him because I wasn't taken to church. I wasn't taught that. And I think that side of me was very hard for her to take. And she didn't like that. And so she tried to beat that out of me, I think. Not physically, but emotionally. And
like, do you think maybe she was trying to get those thoughts out of your head? Did that?
I don't really know where it came from. She would say things like, you think you're so special. You think somebody's going to ride in on a white horse and save you.
Mm-hmm.
You think life is just easy. And, maybe she was from an old school and just trying to toughen me up, I don't know, because I do cry easy. So, maybe that was part of it. But, she'd call me names. And
do you think it had in your household? So no church was even mentioned. Did you guys have any sort of I don't know, like stuff around the house, like spiritual things at home, or I guess the question I'm trying to get to is, was church ever there at some point in your life? Or I guess I'm saying church, but just the spiritual, whatever you were feeling, where did you pick it up?
So that's why I know it came from God, because there was always this immense love that I had. And I could just feel it. And I could feel it for other people. I still can. And I can tell a lot of times when people are in distress, or when they're hurting, or anger's pretty easy to see, but I don't know, I can just feel it.
You can just feel it.
And so it's like this love will flow through me to, like, reach out to them, be compassionate towards them, give them an uplifting word, something positive.
When did you first feel this?
I don't remember not having it.
What?
Yeah. So this is why I know it's a gift.
Okay.
And to answer your question, we did go to church once a year. We always went on Easter. And, you know, I think any exposure is good exposure, you know. But just in general, I lived a volatile life with void of love. I felt like I was in the way, you know.
Mm.
So, but my nature, my true nature, I do have another side, you know. I can get angry too. My kids will tell you. And grandkids. I have two now, but my 10-year-old will tell you. But you know, the love that I have for people has always overridden the hardships, if that makes sense.
Is it something like you always see the good in the person despite how they're expressing themselves?
I do sometimes. Sometimes, like, it's not that I see it, I see the pain.
Yeah.
You know, I see the pain
Like you
first,
feel, okay.
or I can feel it.
Is it like a feeling that you get with some people or just with everyone?
I think it's intuitive.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily just the way someone looks. Sometimes you can tell. Sometimes you can see someone that's very distressed and you know. But I think it's more intuitive. I think that's God talking to me.
Okay.
I personally believe I'm feeling just a little bit of what God feels. Right? I think when we feel that love for somebody, or when we feel that pain for somebody, I think we're just getting just a little hint of what God is feeling. God is feeling. So He uses us to help each other and to reach out to people and to uplift them. You know, He says in His word, the best gift you can have is to edify others, is to lift others up.
And you didn't learn that till later.
I didn't learn the scripture, the verbiage until later.
Right. Oh.
But I just always knew it.
Yeah. That is a gift.
It is a gift.
No doubt.
Yeah, it is a gift.
No doubt. And the reason I ask this is very few times I've spoken with people that say they feel things and not exactly how you're saying, but something similar. That's why I'm kind of like asking, just to see what kind of connections I see. I if there's anything kind of, but I mean, it might be just what you're saying. It might be just us feeling what God is feeling. Maybe, I mean,
I feel like there's just a little bit of that. When I tell my kids, I've just recently started telling them I could be a professional crier. I don't know if that's a thing. Maybe I can make money at it. But I cannot literally, I go to funerals for people that I don't know, you know, when if I know someone in the family. And I cannot go to a funeral and just not feel all that pain and the grief in the room. And I'll cry like I know them, but I don't know them. But it's not them in particular. It's just all the weight of the room.
Okay.
So
interesting.
That does translate for me into real estate. It helps me a lot in real estate because I can feel what my clients are feeling. Okay. I can feel what they need.
And sometimes in real estate, not every situation is, hey, we're selling because we're moving to our next future dream home. Sometimes the home is being sold or they're moving because of a not so pleasant situation that's going on in their lives. And so I'm sure you have plenty of stories there, but
yes.
But I want to go back and find out, how is it that you were 13 years old. At the time, you don't even really know you're being mentally abused.
No, I did not. I didn't realize that until I was older and got out.
Because you're 13, right? Yeah. So how did you respond?
I was 12.
Oh,
actually.
12.
Yes, I was 12. I was just starting 6th grade.
So how did you respond to your grandma when she was telling you these things that obviously they didn't feel good? What was your response or your reaction?
Most of the time I was just quiet. I wasn't a rebellious type person. I wasn't an angry, type person. There were times I would argue back with her, but for the most part, I always gave credit to God for things. And she would always tell me, you did that yourself, She would talk about my mother terribly, just terrible things. And then she would turn around and tell me I was just like her. She would cuss at me, things like that. And I just, I think when I would take that in, I don't think I ever really believed it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I just felt bad for her. I used to, because even though she was so mean to me, I was the only one to take care of her. And so I took care of her until she died, And so, and she died when I was 28, There was one time when I was older, I was pregnant with my youngest daughter. It all came out at once. All the anger, all the issues with her came out at once. And I was not a very nice person at that moment.
You were pregnant.
Yeah. I was like, do not mess with me. But, that's probably the most that I ever said to her.
Okay. Did you stay in touch with your sisters?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're still close. They, like I say, they were older. So they were like, one of my sisters had already moved out. My other sister was like a senior in high school.
Okay.
One of our sisters was estranged from us, so we didn't grow up with her.
Okay.
So we just had an interesting, interesting dynamic.
Yes. So, when you moved out when you're 18,
mm-hmm.
Before that, did you have anybody that you would go to?
No, I didn't have anybody. God was my go-to. It's always been me and God.
What about your teachers? Was there any teacher that you felt?
There were teachers that were very kind to me. And I did very well in school. I was in the top 10% of my class, even with working 2 jobs.
Did you express your feelings or what was going on at home, or even with the time of transitioning over to your grandma's? No.
No.
What about your friends?
Because you don't know.
Right.
You don't really know to. I don't think so. I think it was just my life.
Okay.
It was just my life. It was just my plight. And I don't think I saw it as abusive until I had children.
Okay.
And then when I had children, I was like, I would never talk to my kids that way. I would never say those things to my children. Now, those tapes play in your head. So I talk to myself that way, or I used to. I used to talk to myself that way when I would do something stupid or what I felt like was stupid. Or if I made a mistake, I'd be very hard on myself.
I really want to talk about that. So remind me to get back to your own thoughts and how, because I want to know how you started breaking out of those thoughts. But before we get there, I want to know, were you much of a did you date much or no?
No, I dated my former husband. I was 17 and started seeing him and ended up marrying him 5 years later, and we were married for 12 years. But we were together for 17. And that was also an abusive type relationship, not physically, but
Mentally as well.
some other ways. Yeah, he's a different person now. He's
Okay.
a great father. Can't take anything from him, but I think it was a transition from my grandmother into this relationship with him. And he was older than me. He was 23. I was 17.
How'd you meet him?
He lived 2 doors down from us.
Okay.
And so his parents had bought that home so they could go to college. And so him and his siblings lived 2 doors down.
Okay.
And or a couple of his siblings.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did your grandma take you being in a relationship?
Well,
Since she was
I hid
your...
it. I hid it. Yes, because he was black.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, back then, that was just a terrible thing, you know? And I grew up, my mother was very racist. So I hid that relationship.
Did you have communication with your mother?
I tried to have a relationship with her. She was very aloof, you know. Very beautiful, very charismatic. So she had a lot of external friends, but close-in relationships were very difficult for her because she also had a very difficult childhood. Okay. So I feel like myself and my sisters broke the cycle. Okay. Of, you know,
the abuse,
abandonment, you know, those types of things that you go through.
Okay, so when do you decide, or what happens that you decide to get married?
Well, we were together for 5 years, and then I got pregnant with my oldest daughter. Okay. And then he proposed to me, and we decided to go ahead.
So those 5 years, you mentioned your husband was also abusive in other ways. Mm-hmm. During those 5 years that you dated, what was that relationship like? Did you see any abusive tendencies, or did you see them but didn't know they were, like, what was your experience?
I don't think I saw it, you know. Okay. So the interesting thing that I've learned about myself is that, and my oldest daughter actually pointed this out to me, Adair, is that I was available for unavailable people. Right? Okay. So my mother was unavailable, but one day she would wake up and see, you know. My grandmother was available. She was there, but physically she was harmful, you see. Mm-hmm. But she bought me clothes every year and got me to school, and, you know, so she took care of me. Yes. So when I got into the relationship, excuse me for... No. When I got into my relationship with my former husband, I did not see the fact that he was also unavailable. So the 5 years that we were together, we were not together. In his, like, he never claimed me. Oh, okay. See what I'm saying? We lived together. We lived together. We did all the things that you do when you live together. I washed his clothes, cooked for him, you know, did all that stuff. But we were never girlfriend, boyfriend.
What does that mean?
Well, at the time, I didn't see it. You know, I knew I loved him. Okay. Right. So, but he didn't have to love me back because I grew up without it. Right. But one day he's going to wake up and see, just like I thought my mom would and my grandmother would. You see what I'm saying? So I was repeating the...
It was, you knew that. It was almost like you were going back to the old story because you knew that story. So
it was familiar.
It was familiar.
I thought that was love. Okay. But that's not love. Okay. You know? And then...
So in these 5 years, when did you finally introduce them? Or did you, since you mentioned you hid it at first?
I did. I hid it. There's a lot of things that happened, but after I had my daughter.
After?
I called my mom and told her She had a black grandchild. That did not go over well. She was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm sure." But once I had my daughter, I was like, "There's no way she can't love me. And she might not like me. She might not agree with my life choices. But there's no way she can't love me." Because there's just that bond between a mom and a child, you know? Yeah. So that's when I decided to call her.
Oh, okay.
And told her. And she did. She came to see her, and she was somewhat in their lives. You know, she's passed away. She died when I was 31.
Oh, okay.
So that the kids were very young when she died. So we never got a chance to have that wonderful relationship I always wanted.
Okay.
You know.
Did she stay around the area? Like, did you communicate in over the phone or also in person?
Yeah, so she lived in Dallas.
Okay.
The Dallas area, like Mesquite back then was up and coming. Mm-hmm. You know, Box Springs was all up and coming. Like that was the suburbs, okay. You know, back then. And so
you were making a drive if you were going over there, right?
Yeah. And so when she would get angry with my grandmother, she would come and take me back. And then she would get tired of me and take me back to my grandmother. So she officially gave me away when I was 12. And then I would come home and all my stuff would be packed. And I'd be back at my mom's house. And then when she would get tired of that again, I'd be back at my grandmother's house. So that went on for about 3 years. And when I turned 15, I decided myself I was going to move back in with my grandmother because they had gotten into an argument. Okay. And I was living with my mom again, and she was never home. Okay. Yeah, she was a hard worker. I'll give her that. But she's also a hard partier. So,
and there's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah. And so, you know, I just made a decision at 15 that I was going to move back in with my grandmother and stay there and finish school and leave. And that's what I did.
Finish school and leave. What was the defining reason that your mom wasn't really available, or was there other reasons why you decided to go back with your grandma?
It was because my mom wasn't there.
Okay.
You know, there wasn't food in the house. There wasn't, you know, I don't want to paint a terrible picture. You know, there's a lot of people that have had a lot harder childhoods than I did, but, you know, she just wouldn't go grocery shopping, you know, and I couldn't get to school on time. And, you know, there was just a lot of things that my grandmother did that she didn't. And so even though she, you know, I was like a pawn basically in between them. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know my father because he was estranged from my grandmother. When I moved in with my grandmother, when my mom officially gave me to her, he came back into my grandmother's life. So I got to meet him. So I was seeing him secretly. My mom did not know.
You weren't supposed to know.
I was not supposed to see him. So I don't know what that history was or why that was. But when I was 14 and my mother and grandmother got into an argument, my grandmother threatened to tell my mother that I had been seeing my father. Mm-hmm. So I just told her, I said, well, you're going to be in trouble, not me. I said, so you go and tell her.
Did she?
I know.
No.
She didn't tell her. But I got to see him a few times. You know, not a lot in those 2 years, but a few times.
How was those connections with your dad? What was that like?
It was good. You know, he was an alcoholic, which I didn't understand. Okay. What that really meant, you know, because I'd never really lived. My mom drank, but I wouldn't classify her as an alcoholic by any means. Mm-hmm. So, but he was. Okay. And so I'm sure that's one of the reasons she didn't want me to be around him. But I never really saw that because when I'd see him, I'd only see him for a couple of days. Okay. You know?
Did he seem apologetic for the time he wasn't there?
Um, Somewhat. Yeah, somewhat. I don't know that we really ever addressed it. Back in those days, you didn't talk about stuff, especially as a kid. You didn't have much right to say how you made me feel.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and you do what you're told.
Yeah.
You know.
So I know you have really nobody to go to, and somehow you are just blessed with with these feelings that all you can do is really just kind of love. And um was there anything else that you did that helped you get through these moments?
When I was 16 and I got my car, my mother had a car lot. They weren't the best cars, so they would break down all the time, but that's okay. They were still cars, right? I started going to church, and I got baptized
At 16
at 16.
by yourself?
Yes. Well, my mom came. She was there. My grandmother was too. The decision. I'm sorry, I keep doing that.
Yes, that's okay.
So I think that was my lifeline. I was so excited to get to go to church.
Really?
Yes.
What about church? Did you join any clubs? Or I don't know, any not clubs, but like, they have like church or Bible study groups, or they have like youth groups. Did they have any groups that you got involved with?
They did. I did not. I was pretty much a loner. I was so used to it just being me and God. I was pretty much to myself. Now, I've always been outgoing, and I've always kind of ended up in a leadership type role if I do get involved in anything. Not that I really looked for that, but it just kind of happens. But no, I just pretty much, went to school and I was working 2 full-time jobs. So
Where were you?
no, I'm sorry, 2 part-time jobs that made a full-time job, and then going to school.
That's very impressive. At how old are you?
16.
16.
16 to 18, I did that.
So what were you doing? What were your jobs?
I worked at a daycare. Right here off Green Oaks Boulevard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, off of 20 in Green Oaks. I can't remember. Overland Stage Academy was the name of it. And I worked at a Navy recruiting station. I was there. I worked there for 2 years. So that's really where I learned most of my life skills.
Mm.
So I didn't have a father, but all of a sudden I had 4 fathers because there were 4 recruiters. And I couldn't date anybody because they kept putting everybody in the Navy. So I couldn't get away with much,
Okay.
So
and what was your goal, or when you decide to work 2 part-time jobs and go to school at 16 years old?
Well, I had to, money-wise.
You had to.
Because we didn't have enough money. So I took care of myself, and I paid my grandmother rent. It was only $50.
Still.
But it was, I bought my own food. I bought my own clothes. I bought my own everything. And then I gave her rent while I stayed there.
Wow.
No, she never asked for it, but I gave it to her.
And she never asked for it.
She never asked for it.
Did you know that it was that she needed help, or was it just no questions asked? This is just mandatory.
No, I just knew. Interestingly enough, it's going to be hard to believe, but I actually put her on a budget at the age of 12.
Stop.
Yeah, I did. I've always been good with money.
You put her. What did that budget look like?
So it was, she only made at that time $900 a month, and so I just wrote down, because she never had enough money. So I wrote down how much she made, and then we wrote down all of her bills, and then we allocated money for special things. And
Oh, so
then,
you had all the intel that yes, you knew you had the numbers.
yeah, it's just crazy. Like, I don't know where that came from. It just,
Well, you know what's
just always good
crazier
at it.
is that you were putting yourself through working two jobs and still going to school. And I think and still going to school, I think that's a key thing, because when I come across stories where, people or students in high school need to join the workforce to help with bills, oftentimes I hear stories of doing one or the other.
Yeah, a lot of people do drop out. They do, because they see that money at that moment in their life is more important. Unfortunately, those people, a lot of times, that choice, I'm going to say those people, that choice keeps you trapped
I like how you put that.
in that hourly type mindset, which there's nothing wrong with working hourly at all, but it keeps you at a minimum, right? Like, you don't see your worth.
Yes.
You don't understand that 2 miles down the road, there's a totally different life, And when you live in an impoverished area like that, I went to school at O.D. Wyatt High School. So I don't know if you know Kirk Franklin.
Mm-mm.
He was a year ahead of me. He's a gospel singer, and a very successful gospel singer. Okay. And so he was in that school. David Mann, Tamala Mann, they're both all very successful. They were in my grade. Well, I think Tamala was. I don't know. I didn't know Tamala. I did meet David. But so it was a tougher neighborhood, but there's not a lot of job opportunities. There were video stores, there were gas stations,
Yeah.
there was a grocery store, there was.
How did you find these jobs? Because you didn't have a cell phone.
So I had a work-study program at the school. And so the work-study program, that's how I got the Navy recruiting job. Okay. It was through the city had a program for underprivileged kids, so that they could work and get paid. And so I got to work there. And then the Overland Stage, the daycare that I worked at, it was the same thing. It wasn't a city program, but the school that I was working with, they were like, this person's looking for, somebody.
So these programs work.
They work, yes. And it afforded me the opportunity to better my life. I was going to go into the Navy. I felt like that was going to be a good option for me, but I cried so easy. I literally did not think I'd make it through boot camp. And I probably wouldn't have.
I think you would have.
I'm pretty tough in a lot of ways, but I do not like being yelled at. That's one thing I do not like. And so, and that comes from the history, of my life, but I don't like that. Mm-hmm. And so, but yeah, it did work, and it was a blessing for me, and I learned a tremendous amount at the Navy recruiting station.
Did you get close with any of these coworkers or superiors that you learned from?
Yeah. And I actually worked for one gentleman later in life, before I went into real estate. He had gotten out of the Navy and reached out to me and asked me if I wanted a job selling educational college program with Bryan Institute. Back then, I don't even know if they're still around now. So I did that for a hot minute.
So he reached out to you too.
Yeah.
There's a common trend here.
Yeah. But to answer your question, to find those jobs, you either look through the paper. Okay. I would walk. I used to walk, and I would apply for jobs.
What was your transfer? Oh, you bought a car. Well, before, how did you get to your jobs and school?
So my grandmother would take me.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when I got my license, I would drive her car.
Okay.
And then my mom gave me a car.
Okay.
So she gave me one of the cars from her car lot. And then when it would break down, I'd get another one. And then when that one would break down, I'd get another one.
Hey, well, that's handy.
I was still very blessed to
Yes.
to have transportation.
For sure.
Yeah. So it was I guess I've always been a go-getter, you know?
I see that.
Yeah. Always been a go-getter.
Not surprised. So you are working at these 2 jobs, you graduate, and what do you do next?
That's when I moved out, as soon as I
What
turned
happened to your
18.
grandma? Or because you were caring for her, so how was she good to care for herself?
She could take care of herself,
Okay.
but she went down really quick after I moved out.
Okay.
So I would go over there 2 to 3 days a week,
Mm.
and I would do her laundry and cook for her and grocery shop for her and stuff like that. And I did that all the way up until she passed away when I was 28.
Did you have much family visiting your grandma?
No.
Maybe a family of hers that came to visit her?
No, she was so difficult and such a mean person. She had ran everyone off.
She'd ran everyone off.
Yeah, and I reached out to my father. He's passed away too, but I had reached out to my father whenever she was sick, and he eventually just stopped taking my calls. He wouldn't deal with it, you know. But I don't know what their history was.
Right. Who
You know,
knows?
I don't know.
For sure. So with your grandma and you moving out, you're still dating your former husband,
Mm-hmm.
and do you move in with him or with a roommate or yourself?
No, so I got the apartment first, and then he moved in with me. Yeah, yeah, and he was, like I say, he was 24 at the time because I was 18. So he was 23 when I started dating him, which is way twisted, right? Nowadays you would think, oh my God, that's terrible. But you know, I was living such a grown life, and I was so grown up in so many ways.
Look, you're setting up budgets at age 12.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was crazy. And I used to have an envelope system. So I would have an envelope for each bill that had to be paid.
Mm.
And every week when I would get my paycheck, I would take a fourth of what that bill was and I would put it in that envelope. That was my system. I didn't have a checking account. And then I had a tithe envelope. And so I've always tithed. I've always given 10%. And I didn't even know to do that. Like no one had ever taught me to do that.
I was just going to ask.
So I always put that inside my Bible. I kept that envelope inside my Bible. And I remember I had $100 that I had saved for tithe money, which was $1,000 back then was a lot of money.
No
you
kidding.
know. So
It still is.
I saved $100, and I remember taking it to the church, and it was in dollar bills and change and $5 bills, and you know, it was pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy because I don't think I know anyone that has that kind of mindset at that age where it's not gimme, 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 gimme. Like you're somehow, nobody's taught you, you're disciplined and you're giving.
And again, it's just a gift. It had to be, because it was never taught. But what I did know is you can't receive with your hands closed. You know, I knew that.
You knew that.
I knew that for a fact. And I just always knew God was going to take care of me. So it didn't scare me to move out. You know, it didn't scare me.
What was your goal? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, this is just crazy. So right after I moved out, I had 3 jobs at the time when I moved out. So I worked for a company called Manpower, which I think they're still in business, but it was temporary, where they would, you know, send you on temporary jobs. So I would do like receptionist work, you know, things like that. I had my own company called The Organizer, and I started organizing Navy recruiting stations because of the knowledge I had, and then found out that was illegal. So had to stop that. That was my first knockdown, you know. I felt like I was
First lesson.
Felt like I was big and bad and going to take over the world, and all of a sudden, all at once, it all stopped, you know. So I took that company. It was called The Organizer. I took that company and started organizing small businesses. So I'd go in and set up their filing systems. Back then there was no internet.
No. So you were crucial because you were the internet.
Yeah, I was the internet.
You were the internet. Yes.
So I'd go in and set up their filing systems and even help them with their accounting. And even though I didn't have an accounting degree, I could help in some way, and so I was doing that, and then I also did typing and proposal writing, things like that. I wasn't writing the proposals, but I was typing proposals for people.
Did you learn this in college?
No. This was all still when I was 18.
Oh, still 18.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So when I graduated high school, the Navy recruiting job stopped. Right. Mm-hmm. So once I turned 18, it stopped.
Okay.
So the city didn't pay for that anymore. So I had to start doing other things. I met this lady by the name of Dr. Branch. She had a educational center on Wichita Street in Fort Worth. She had a daycare center and an educational center. And so I started doing her proposals because she was reaching back out to the community. And the reason I agreed with you when I told you that a lot of people do drop out of school because it's one or the other, she actually designed a program to keep kids in school. And they would come to the tutoring center, get tutored, and get paid for being tutored.
That's amazing.
And the dropout rate dropped drastically. Yeah.
There was an incentive to show up and get educated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I love that about her. I thought that was a beautiful story. Her backstory was she grew up in a tent city. And her family did pick cotton. And she figured out at a young age that education was her way out. And she put herself through college all the way through a doctorate. And so her name was Dr. Branch. I learned a lot from her too. I was very fortunate to be with so many people that were so educated isn't the word I'm looking for, but kind. They were just very kind. They wanted to help. They wanted to help people.
They wanted to help.
Yeah. So I was very fortunate in that. Even though I had a hard upbringing, God still put people in my life that, really helped me along the way.
Yes. So
anyway, I moved out and Navy recruiting job stopped, right? That was illegal. So that stopped. I can't remember now what happened with, I think the proposal writing had stopped because it had already been accepted. And then we had a terrible accident on the freeway.
Was we?
My former husband and myself. He was actually thrown across the freeway. My car died in the middle of the freeway. I was taking him to work on 35, right where I-20 comes on in South Fort Worth. And there was an 18-wheeler coming. It was rush hour traffic, and he just barely missed us. I had just got out of the car. Frederick was on the back right-hand corner of the car, pushing the car, and something told him to move. And right after he moved, he opened the door to push the car. I had my door open. We were pushing, and a car hit exactly where he was and just smashed the car. He went flying that way. Car went that way. I'm standing in the middle of the freeway. It was crazy.
Oh, wow. Did it all feel like slow motion?
It was all slow motion. I still, to this day, I lost a shoe. Never found that shoe. I have no idea where that shoe was. So I was walking around with one shoe on, one shoe off. But he bounced on the freeway a couple times. And what saved his life from other cars hitting him is the car that hit him landed here. And that was the oncoming ramp from I-20. Oh. He landed here. My car ended up on the other side of him. It was crazy. Anyway, so with that being said,
That's crazy because it's almost like he got protected by some weird just
This is amazing.
way.
Yeah, it was amazing. And really, that was a turning point in our lives. But I had a choice. I either had to find a job that I could walk to, or I had to go back home. I didn't want to go back home. So I got up one morning and I got dressed and I told him I'm going to get a job. And he's like, how are you going to go get a job? I said, I'm going to walk until I find a job and I'll be back. And I did.
And you found the job.
I just prayed. I asked God to open the right doors for me. I went all day long and I went to any building that was around me and I kept getting turned down. And so finally,
So you didn't get it on the first try?
I did. I didn't get the job on the first try, on the first day.
Sorry, like the when people kept closing doors, like they didn't, not the first place you knocked, they didn't give you the job.
No, it was all day.
Yeah, no, I'm being sarcastic because a lot of times, we expect things to happen the first time, but you knocked on several doors and you got a yes. It happened the same day. Who knows why? Maybe it's that praying you did before. Who knows?
I think so. But I did. The last place I went was a hotel at the time. It's not a hotel anymore. He goes, yeah. He goes, we need a person to work in the office. We pay $800 a month. I said, I'll take it. My rent was $400.
Wow.
Back then, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, $400. Believe that.
What a way we've came, huh?
Yeah, long ways. So I walked back home and told him I got a job, and I walked to work until I could afford a car.
Wow. What did he do?
At the time he was working at Miller's. He was a security guard, but he couldn't get to work. It was too far to walk, because that's in South Fort Worth. So
darn, Uber wasn't there.
Yeah, no Uber, and so he ended up getting a job at a place called, I can't even remember the name of it, but he used to joke about it, but it was like it was an assembly line, and he put a computer chip on this little circuit board would come by, and he'd put a chip on, and it would go on another circuit board. So he did that until we got a car.
Okay.
But we had the choice. This was the really changing point in our life, I believe. We had a choice to sue that lady that hit us. And we both decided not to.
Both? Mm-hmm. Why do you why did you make that choice?
Well, it wasn't her fault. My car died in the middle of the freeway. Okay. And it certainly wasn't her fault that there was a semi in front of her that got over just in time. And we just felt like it would be wrong to go after her. So they paid for his medical bills. They paid for his time off. And they gave me $600 for my car. I had a little Datsun B210. I called it Rochetta. It looked like a little roach to me, so I called it Rochetta. They gave me $600, and then I saved up enough money to buy another car. So
wow,
got a cash car, and not too long after that, that's when I found the ad in the newspaper.
Not too long after that.
Yeah, it wasn't too long. Maybe a year. It may have been about a year. 8 months to a year.
Okay,
somewhere in there.
Wow. So, do you have any type when you're living by yourself, or not by yourself with him? I guess at this point, do you have any communication, but not just communication, but do you have any interactions with your sisters?
Yeah, I was still talking to my sisters. I just couldn't.
Do you guys meet with them?
I just couldn't talk to my mom.
You didn't,
and I couldn't talk to my grandmother, or I couldn't tell them the truth.
Okay, but your sisters knew the truth.
I felt like I couldn't tell them the truth. No, I didn't tell anybody.
Nobody.
No.
Nobody.
No.
Like zero.
Nobody knew.
Nobody at church.
Nobody. No, because I wasn't going to a regular church. I would visit churches.
You would just visit them?
Uh-huh.
Stop.
Yeah. So I just would visit different churches. I love being in church, though. I loved helping people and saying hi to everybody. Okay. being a part of a group wasn't a big thing for me. So,
How did you feel when you walked into church?
At home, very connected,
Okay.
very loving. It was a very loving place for me. Okay. I would always cry when they sang. Always. I've never been into, even if it's bad singing, I still cry. Most of the times it's good. Like sometimes it's bad. If I were to sing, it'd be bad. So
Same here.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was probably my favorite place to be. But I just always knew God would take care of me. And then, so when I did fall into real estate, I also fell into cleaning at the same time because I was making $6 an hour and the cleaning people didn't show up. And my boss at the time said, I'm going to have to fire them. And I was like, well, how much do you pay them? And he goes, well, it's $75 for all 3 models. I was like, it's $25 a model? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, how long does it take to clean? He goes, probably about an hour a model. I was like, I'll do it. So then we fell into the janitorial business, which my ex-husband still has. He still has it. So we built that company from ground up. We had 60 people when I left. We were in 3 different states when we got divorced.
No way.
And I left the business to him, and I took real estate with me.
Really?
Yeah.
Why was that? Why? Well, actually, before we get there, you built this business with him. Did he have any experience building a business?
Yeah, his parents were entrepreneurial.
Okay.
They had a logging business in Southeast Texas. And his father got injured, and then the business went down, after his father got injured. But his mom was a very powerful presence. She was a fighter,
Mm-hmm.
And so he had that experience, and then I just had the mind of business. I was blessed with that. So we started and cleaned with babies on my back and one on a buffer. I used to put my son on a buffer, would tie the little seat. Mm-hmm. And my daughter would be on my back, and
Wow. A mom doing her thing.
It was crazy. Yeah. But then eventually we got to hire somebody, and
it took until 60 people.
60 people later, and big Christmas parties every year, and
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, but when we divorced, I just left everything and started over.
And
except the kids, Yeah. I took the kids. And my clothes. I did take my clothes.
Well, look at that. We have a visitor here. Hey. Hello, Harvey.
I can talk to you.
Logan, can you call him? Logan.
Hey, come on.
I say Logan because they usually listen to him. He wants to go under the table.
He wants to be next to you.
For some reason, every time we're gathered in a table, whether it's here or the dining room, okay, just let him sit down.
I think it's the cords because there's more cords than normal.
Do you want to come over here?
Harvey.
Is he having trouble?
I think it's the cords under. Usually, Logan has some technical things here with these cords. And they're usually not there. So he would usually we'll cut all this piece out of the podcast anyways. Lay down, Harvey. No? Okay. Well, lay down so you don't bother anymore. Go. Lay down, buddy. He's confused. He's had surgery twice in his eyes because he developed ulcers.
I was wondering what that was on his...
Yeah, both eyes. Yeah, one of them's worse than the other.
He's like a bear. He's so pretty.
He's like, okay,
I've never seen a dog that big.
Oh, he has to go outside now.
But he's so sweet.
He's the most gentle giant I've ever met, actually.
Yeah, he's So sweet.
If he was just a little bit aggressive or anything, I don't know, would be in trouble because he's so ginormous.
Yes. Like
And
he could take you down.
you should have seen
He's bigger
yesterday.
than you.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Yesterday, it's we'll cut out this piece out, but yesterday, Madison was sitting in her car in her little seat where we're giving her like just treats while we were eating dinner, and she was sharing with Harvey, and somehow she thinks it's so funny
Yes.
when he comes close to her, and she had like a Cheeto, those Cheeto puffs in her hand, and Harvey's like licking it, and she's cracking up,
Oh,
and then
that's-
Harvey like he's trying to get it from her,
Uh-huh.
and then we're like getting worried a little bit, but we know he's so gentle, and then he ends up just kind of just cracking the little end of it. That's how gentle he is.
Aw.
And we're like, yeah, like,
I think that's so sweet.
yeah.
Yeah. That's very sweet. I remember Adair used to laugh. She thought it was so funny when she was a baby. She's 32 now. But when she was a baby, if our dog caught a ball, she thought that was the funniest thing. And we used to just make him catch a ball all the time, so she'd laugh. It was so fun. That was so fun.
Yeah, we were like, oh, look, there's a phone, take a video. Actually, I think I didn't have my video at the time. My phone, I couldn't take a video because I thought that was the cutest thing.
Oh, it's so sweet. And they love, the dogs love to be a part.
Oh,
Yeah.
They don't speak, but the love is undeniable.
Yes.
No doubt.
They communicate.
Yes.
They just don't. They probably communicate better than we do, actually.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. I know what she wants. Oh, all the time she makes me know what she wants.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. They know for sure.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, so let's go back to the cleaning business. So obviously you built a business, and this is when where are we here in the timeline?
It's all the same time. So this is all 1988.
Okay.
So I started working with the builder in 1988. The cleaning people didn't show up. We got that extra little $75 a week bump,
Yes.
which was amazing. Back then it was a lot of money.
Yes.
It took a whole week to make,
How was
or a whole day.
How was your relationship with your husband as both business partners?
So everything we did very well together, surprisingly. There was, I don't know if push and pull is the right word, but there was a lot of, I knew how to make it work, paperwork wise, that kind of wise. But he would like fight me on those things. Now he apologized for all this later,
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty miserable. It's hard to work together and live together. That can be very challenging, But God blessed us. It didn't matter what we did. He always blessed us, and we were always able to do well at it. We never became wealthy, by any means, but we did well. And but it was a struggle. I mean, there was a lot of things that we had to give up to
Like what?
make those things happen, like income. Because you're struggling to make a business grow, and so you do without yourself so the company can grow.
Okay.
Okay. And then as the company did start growing and we were actually able to start paying ourselves, that was a pretty big day.
So would you say that from your income, you almost had to set aside money for the business?
Well, the real estate income really took care of the household until the janitorial business started taking off.
Okay.
So once the janitorial business started taking off, I mean, because we were making money from it, but once it really started taking off and we were able to hire people and things like that, it was self-sustaining, but it was still, it was still a lot of, I took my kids everywhere with me. They didn't go to daycare. They were with me. Every house I sold, every appraisal, every loan application. Back then nothing was done online because there was no online.
Yeah.
I used to carry a dare up 10 flights of stairs to the HUD building to turn in my HUD bids.
Wow.
And they would stamp it physically. Received. Date and time. Isn't that crazy?
That is so crazy.
Yeah. And, because I was a first-time mom and I didn't trust the elevator.
Oh, really?
So I just walked up the stairs with her. I was really in shape, though, for a long time.
You didn't trust the elevator.
I didn't trust the elevator because it was iffy. It was an iffy building.
And you had your daughter.
And I had my daughter.
Here's Mama Bear.
I was not putting her in that elevator.
Yeah.
So I'd go up, 10 flights of stairs in heels with baby on my hip.
Oh, wow.
Because back then you used to dress up everywhere.
Yes. Heels
and suits and
right.
pantyhose.
Yes.
Yes.
Different world now.
Different world. Totally different world. Yeah. Much better, in my opinion.
Yes. Yes, for sure. Well, I think the style has really evolved a lot,
Yeah.
So it's like you can wear different things that's not a suit, but it's also nice.
Yeah, but you still look nice. Yeah. Like these little things, I love these.
Yeah.
Because they're easy, they're cool, they're not. I used to sweat showing houses, those suits, and it's terrible. 100 degrees outside and you're wearing a long sleeve suit.
Yes.
It's just terrible.
So it's funny because I got tired of figuring out what I was going to wear every day. Every day I'm like, what? Okay. I would look in my closet. Literally, I would stand there and be like, okay, what do I wear? And I got tired of saying that. So one day I go to Dick's and this is not the reason, right? I just go and I'm shopping and I literally find these shirts.
I love that shirt.
So, I buy one and I like it. And then here I go the next day. I'm looking at my closet. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back and I'm going to buy 7 more of those shirts.
Because they're comfortable.
Yes. And I don't have to think about it. I just wear the same shirt every day.
That's great.
And so, honestly, it's made my life so much easier.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Like it's a problem when I got tired of getting tired of it.
Yes.
I got tired of getting tired of it. So yes, I'm glad I guess maybe if it was a suit, I would just wear the same suit every day, I guess, in that sense. But
that's so funny.
It's like one thing that would take up time that I would get almost like annoyed and stressed, So I'm like, screw it.
Yeah.
Getting the same thing.
That's great. I love it. What a way to simplify your life.
Yes. No, I love it.
It does not have to be hard.
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't.
So funny.
And my mom's like, oh, it's so funny because she'll give me like, look, I lost a lot of weight, right?
You look amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
So I
not that you were ever heavy, because you weren't.
Oh, I was. I don't think you saw me.
You look amazing.
And thank you. So mom's like, look at all these clothes. They're so beautiful. You can wear them so well. I'm like, Mom, it's just like thinking about what I'm going to wear is just.
It's a lot.
It's a lot for me. Like it's something that I don't care about, but I know that okay, let me put it that way. I do care about, but I don't care where I need to spend like a lot of time. And if I find something that I like, then I'm okay with that. Kind of thing.
There's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. So,
when you're in real estate, you have a new mom, you have a home, a husband. It's a lot.
Now a podcast.
And a podcast.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Thanks. Well, I am happy that you are here.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. It's a pleasure really for me to get to listen to people like you and your stories. Honestly, like it's a minute 16 and we're still in it. You've done so much. We're still like in your 1819 era and you're such a hustler, right? What age you're how old are you when you get pregnant the first time?
22.
22.
Yeah. So 28 my last. So I was 22, 24, no, 26 and 28
Okay.
when I had kids.
Was the first one planned?
No,
No.
none of them were planned.
No. Okay.
No.
And when you tell your former husband, your ex-husband, that you're pregnant, how does he take it?
But he was excited.
Okay.
He came from a large family.
Okay.
He came from 11 kids. So they had a big family.
Mm.
So for him, he was excited. You know, even though we weren't, he never told me he loved me in 5 years.
Never.
Never, not one time.
Did you tell him?
Yes, all the time.
Did
But
you think it was
again,
weird?
I didn't, because that's the way I was raised. You know, I would get angry sometimes. I would get frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
He called it charging him up. That time, when I would get mad at him. It's like, you stupid, stupid man. I am your girlfriend. But he was just very unavailable. Even in our marriage, he was very unavailable. You know,
How was your relationship with his family?
great. Loved his family. Still do.
Okay.
That was the hardest part about the divorce.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's grown a lot now. He's remarried. He's very happy. You know, so I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
She is a great woman.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
life happens. We were kids. We were young.
For sure.
You know,
For sure.
lots of stuff goes on.
Did you have a plan when you left your grandma's house into your own apartment? Did you have a vision for your future? Or do you think back then you were really just escaping?
I think I was escaping, but I did have a plan. My plan was to have a job. That was my plan.
Did you see anything further past having a job?
Nope.
What did you think this job was going to bring you?
Freedom.
Freedom.
Yeah. Just so I didn't have to be in that state.
Okay.
You know.
Did you ever think of what you wanted to do? Like, was there a career that you had in mind?
No. I did, you know, in 1985 is when I started dating my ex-husband. You know, you're just talking about 21 years after segregation, right? Desegregation. So the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964. You know, so it was still a pretty rough time to be in a biracial relationship. So when I went to college and I was taking my classes, he came up to the college one day to switch cars with me. But this is my real estate courses, and so we had like a group of us, you know, would stand outside and talk. And when they saw him, they all felt the need to counsel me as older individuals about how hard my life was going to be, because I was choosing to be with somebody that was not my race. And that was my experience a lot.
Was it?
I got that experience a whole lot. So
with family and strangers?
Family and strangers, yes. You know, they were like, come on, LaNell, who's going to buy a house from you when they know that you're married to a black man?
Really?
And, you know, it's not like you walk around and say, oh, and by the way, I'm married to a black man, you know?
Right.
You know, but thank God things have changed, you know. And
did you receive any maybe abuse towards you or just insults for dating? You did?
Of course. Yes, of course.
Many times?
Often. A lot by older white men, you know, would not have kind things to say. You know? It's just part of life.
Even walking on the street, or just people that knew?
Looks, a lot of looks.
Okay.
You know, I got so used to being stared at when we were together that now I don't even think about it. I don't even pay attention, you know, because I've got so used to it. But now it's more common, you know, so now, you know, it's not It's just not unless you're just in a terrible situation,
Right.
it's much more accepted.
Right. So what happened that, or what were, how do you think your relationship started falling apart until it led to a divorce?
I don't know that we really ever had a relationship. I think it was always very one-sided. I think I made sense to him as far as being a good wife, good mom, got along with his family, things like that.
Okay.
I think he loved the person I was, but I don't think he was ever in love with me.
Okay.
And you can't make somebody be in love with you.
Right.
And so I don't know that we ever really had a true relationship.
Okay.
But there was a lot of damage in that. There was a lot of damage in the marriage as well. But
How so?
he it's known now, so it's not like I saying something that people don't know about. But there was sexual abuse in the marriage.
Sexual abuse.
And we found out, I didn't know. I thought every woman dealt with what I did. So because women, again, you didn't talk about these things. Now it's much more accepted. I think people talk about things, and they talk about their feelings. They talk about their home lives. Back then, you just didn't we had a home. We had a brand new home. We had a picket fence. We had a Suburban. We had 3 kids and a dog.
The perfect family.
Like it was just
picture.
A perfect little snapshot.
So what
like
happened?
those Facebook posts, where everybody's like, "Oh, I'm up at 5 a.m. and
Yes.
my life is perfect."
Yes.
We used to have albums. Our albums were Facebook posts. You see what I'm saying? So it could look very picture perfect, but it really doesn't tell you anything about what's going on, behind the scenes.
So what was happening behind the scenes?
So the abuse, he never hit me.
Okay.
He wasn't that type of person.
Okay.
I think he suffered things from his childhood and things he was exposed to at a young age. And, it just carried over into our relationship, even before we were married. But again, I thought everybody dealt with that. I didn't know. I just did not know. I did not know until we went to counseling.
Okay.
And that's when they determined that he had a sexual addiction. And that's when they tried to get me to go to counseling for survivors of sexual abuse. And I would not go. So.
Okay.
Probably a big mistake. I should have. But at the time, I just wanted, again, escape, right? I just wanted to be done.
Okay.
Because I had lived that way for 17 years.
Were you done with that relationship when you were going to counseling? Like,
Yes.
Were you done with that relationship? Was it?
I went out of respect for our marriage. Because I had tried to get him to go to counseling for years, but he never would go.
Okay.
And so then when I decided to leave, he wanted to go to counseling.
No way.
Yeah. So, but you know what? This is how good God is. God is so amazing. And he took that situation that he was in, and our marriage had to die because of it. But he was able to save many marriages after that because he helped men in that same situation.
Okay.
So I think God can just take anything that was meant for bad and he can turn it to good.
So what happened in that, or I mean, you can share as much as you feel comfortable with, but when you went to counseling, at this point you were done, but you didn't know you were being abused.
No, I did not know.
Not yet. So you go, and did they pull you aside?
I thought something was wrong with me. We went separate. I refused to go with him.
Okay.
I told him out of respect of our marriage I would go, but I would not go with him.
Okay.
Which was probably a great thing. So we went to the Potter's house, the church in Dallas. I don't know if you're familiar, which I love. They had a great counseling.
I've been invited.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. It's an amazing experience. There's so many people there.
I was like, what is Potter House? Is it like something to do with like Harry Potter? And they're like, oh no, apparently it's very famous, right? It's like very
T.D.
well known.
Jakes, yes.
Okay.
I listen to him all the time.
Okay.
Almost daily. I listen to him. I listen to something uplifting. I listen to a sermon every day, and I listen to something uplifting every day in addition to that. But the counselor pushed a paper towards me and said, we found out through counseling that your husband suffers from this. And it had the words on there, sexual addiction. And so I pushed it back to him and I said, well, I don't believe you. And he pushed it back towards me and he said, it's a real thing and he does have it. And I pushed it back towards him and I said, I guess it's okay to say this. You can cut it out if you need to. But I pushed it back towards him and I said, I don't believe you because I would not. I said, this is a word. This is a phrase. And this is something he's hiding behind. I said, I would not have treated a dog the way he treated me. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to go to a survivor's class. And I don't want to be with him. I just want this to be over. And so he kept the paper. And he said, okay, because I respect that. You know? But I still didn't understand the implications of that. You know?
Of not continuing counseling.
Of not continuing counseling and not addressing that. Because I think a lot of women deal with this. And that's one of the reasons I'm okay with talking about it. I think it was very common in my generation and before. But I still think a lot of women deal with it, you know, because there's some type of ownership, if you will, when you get married that, you know, the woman is supposed to be submissive to the husband. And that's great. That's beautiful. But there's a whole nother section they leave out. And the whole other section that they leave out is the husband is supposed to love the wife. We're not instructed to love our husbands, by the way.
Oh, we're not?
No.
Okay.
Never tells
I'm
us.
off the hook.
Never tells us. Never tells us we have to love our husband. But it does say the husband has to love the wife. The way Jesus loved the church. And how did he love the church? I know. Very sacrificially. And he laid down his life for us. And I don't know many husbands that lay down their life for their wives. Not saying it doesn't exist. But what I am saying is if the husband is loving you that way, of course you're going to be submissive. Of course you're going to want to be with him. But if he's not laying down his life, not physically, but and being there for you and loving you and uplifting you, and of course there's going to be tension in that area. You know.
So what advice, if anybody listens to this and maybe they're going through a similar situation, based on what they hear, what advice would you give them?
I would say to be honest with yourself. To really look at the situation. What is really happening. I tell you what, my turning point was, I told you I listened to something uplifting every day. Now it's on YouTube, right? Or a podcast. But I was listening to a sermon, and when it was Creflo Dollar, Joyce Meyer used to come on, then Creflo Dollar, and then John Hagee. This is way back when. And John Hagee came on, and not that I don't care for him, but it has nothing to do with that. I just normally was done with my sermons for the day.
Okay.
Right. But I had left it on that morning because I was rearranging the living room. And he made a statement about domestic rape. And that domestic rape happens all over the world. All the time. By husbands. And I just sat down on the couch with my mouth open. I had the TV down very, very low. And I just couldn't believe what I heard. So I turned it up and I was listening to what he had to say. And I was like, that's crazy. I mean, is that what's happening? That's not what's happening. That can't be what's happening here.
And this is why you're still married.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
But it was.
Is that when you started? It was
No
kind of like your
means
aha
no.
moment.
It was a moment.
It was a moment.
It was an aha moment, but it wasn't the moment.
Okay.
Right. So towards the end of our marriage, I can tell you I used to go to sleep with my clothes on. Even shoes. I'd fall asleep on top of the bed. So I wouldn't have to. I mean, it was the only form of protection I felt like I had, you know.
Were you forced?
Of course. I always gave in because you're supposed to be submissive. But many knows.
Many knows.
Yes.
And were they ever respected?
No.
Never.
No. They would be now. I mean, he knows better now.
Yeah.
You
Back
know.
then, no.
So what happened that day when I came home from... I think a lot of times in relationships, we end up having to almost hate the person before we address the situation. You know? Instead of doing it while we're still in love and still loving that person and wanting to try to work it out. So that day, after I came home, we were already separated. We still lived in the same house, but we had it worked out to where I was there so many days a week in the weekend, and then he was there the other days in the other weekend. So we didn't have to move the kids until we knew for sure. I mean, I already knew, you know, he had to catch up. Because it was, you have to imagine from his standpoint, I'm going from being a very extremely submissive wife to standing up for myself and saying no, truly, for the first time. You know what I'm saying?
Like a no, it's no.
And mean it. You know, and he didn't know what to do.
He didn't know what to do.
I've never been that person before. You know, so I'm sure that was hard for him. So I changed, but he hadn't changed yet. So I came home that day and I told him that day that, you know, I found out what was going on. And if you ever try again, one of us will die. I don't know which one it'll be, but I'll never go through that again.
You told him this.
I told him that, and he never tried again.
What was his reaction?
He just, I mean,
do you remember?
He knew I meant it. He didn't say anything. He knew, and he never tried again. But I think he was growing at that point, right? He was learning. He was understanding that this was not normal behavior. This was not good. Yeah. You know. Yeah. So we were both growing.
How did you feel after that defining moment where you finally step up for yourself?
I meant it.
How did you feel afterwards?
Great.
Yeah.
I meant it. I felt very powerful. You know, I meant that from the bottom of my heart. I meant it. You know? And I was like, well, that was easy. You did that 5 years ago. But I didn't mean it then. Like, I didn't know.
Right.
I just didn't. I truly did not understand. Okay. It sounds so stupid. But, you know, when you're in a relationship like that, it could have been a lot worse. I mean, he could have beat me. He could have, you know, but he never did that. But there are a lot of women, I think, that do go through stuff like that. Yeah. On top of what I dealt with. You know, and if you're in a situation like that, the best thing you can do is realize you don't deserve it. Nobody has that right. Nobody has that right to put their hands on you for any reason if you say no. None. There's never a reason. So that would be my advice, is to really look at it and say, okay, what is this? And either seek the help you need or to, get out of the situation.
I like how you said to stop lying to ourselves. And I think it's because sometimes you know deep down if something is right or not. You may not know maybe why or what's outside of that world. And maybe that is why people end up lying to themselves, or not lying, but not being real with
I think
themselves.
we make excuses, right? We make excuses for the other person.
Yes.
Yeah. But continue with your thought.
Yes. So sometimes the fear of the unknown, it's bigger than the fear of the life you're living, because the life you're living you're familiar with. And maybe you
so smart, so wise.
Maybe you especially with the way you grew up, you figured out a system to cope within yourself because you didn't have a go-to. So in a sense, you were dealing with it the way you knew to deal with it, because maybe the unknown was scarier until the bubble burst, until you seeked out for help.
Well, let me say
Maybe.
Let me say it this way: my mother was married 16 times. Okay, so and one thing I'll give her:
16 times.
she didn't put up with anything. But because of that, all of us went the opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
We tried so hard to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference when two people are trying versus just one person trying. And it was very unhealthy. The situation was just extremely unhealthy. But you couldn't see it. Again, we had the picket fence. Literally, and it even dipped. It was the perfect picket fence. And we had, the perfect little house and life. And, and I didn't want my kids to grow up without their father. And they didn't. I mean, I'll tell you, he stepped up. But he became he was always a good father. He became a phenomenal father. He became involved, engaged, and
so how was your relationship or not your relationship, but how was the family environment at home all these years with the kids?
So it was interesting because when I was getting divorced, God gave me a dream. I feel like He talks to us in our dreams in many ways. But I think a lot of times in our dreams we're more open. And it was this big ball. There was a big silver ball in this dream, and it was spinning very fast. And all of a sudden, this one ball turned into 5 balls, and they were 5 little balls all spinning in the sky, right? So it was 1, and it went out to 5, and then it came back to 1. So when I woke up, I felt like that was God telling me it was going to be okay. That we were one, we were going to be individuals, Frederick, myself, and the 3 kids.
Stop.
And then come back together as one. I'm not going to say it was perfect. I'm not going to say it was easy, because it wasn't. There was a lot of resentment. I had to work through a lot of stuff on my own. It took me probably 4 years before I could go to sleep without jeans on after the marriage. But I asked God to bless me. I asked Him to be my counselor. I asked God to help me get through it. And he did. And it was amazing because I think the true test of forgiveness is you remember, but you don't have the emotion attached, right? It's not like you're going to forget, but the emotion is not there.
The hurt.
So the hurt, the pain, the anxiety, the anger, the resentment, you know. So what happened was he would bring a memory to me. God would, out of nowhere, it would just be in my head. And he would let me sit with it for probably 2 or 3 days. And then it was like, okay, that's enough. You know, you've remembered, you've processed, you're not there anymore. So let it go. And it was like that for about 4 years. It was like one thing at a time would come. And then it got to where it was faster. You know, I wouldn't have to sit with it for 2 or 3 days. I could sit with it for a couple of hours, you know, and then I was able to let it go. And I actually love him now. I didn't. I actually felt hate for the first time in my life when I divorced him. I'd never felt that emotion before. And I did not care whether he lived or died. Now, I didn't want to hurt him.
Right.
But I just didn't care. You know, I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to be around him. But as I started getting over it and started getting past the memories and the emotions that were attached to it, now I have a great love for him, you know.
That's huge. Much respect for
That's
that.
God. That's 100% God. There's no way I could have did that on my own.
Look, I think that I have no way of disagreeing with you because I don't know that it was God, but look, you need some acknowledgement because that's also you listening. Because listening is a skill that not a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Right?
It is true. It is true. I think God always talks to us. And you can call it whatever you want. You can call it the universe. You can call it God. You get Dr. Wayne Dyer. I love him. I listen to him all the time. He was a great philosopher of our time. He's passed away in 2016 or 17. But he says you can call it Fred. Doesn't matter what you call it. It's still there.
Fair enough.
Right? We're connected. And we all have that sense of connection. Where did we come from? You know? Why do I miss something that I can't see? Where is that hole coming from? And I think there's only one thing that can fill that. And I think it's the spiritual aspect of our lives, the highest part of ourselves, the spiritual connectivity that we have. And when that is fulfilled, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter what else happens because, you know, life is life. Pain is pain. But
would you say it's easier to let go?
It's easier to let go. It's easier to understand that person that hurt you is also hurting. Because hurting people hurt others, you know. And once you see it from that standpoint, it's so much easier, you know, to let it go. Now, I'm not saying I'm over it. I still don't. If you don't know me and you're a man, don't come up and hug me because I'm not going to like it. You know, I'm still very protected, you know, in that. So, you know, I still may go to counseling. But I do know that God got me through the hardest time.
Hardest time.
Yes.
Yeah. So, in a sense, you would say there's still work that needs to get done within you?
I think, yeah, always. I think we can always grow.
Oh, that's no question.
100%.
No question. In regards to this traumatic experience you have, or that, do you feel like you're maybe still carrying some?
That's a good question. I don't know because I'm not in a relationship. I think if I was in a relationship, it might tell me more, you know?
Well, let me ask you this. Does the thought of being in a relationship, does it sound something that is appealing that would be nice, or do you feel more fear towards it, or
Sounds like a lot of work to me.
okay.
Yeah. Relationships are hard. And you know this because in real estate, we see relationships all the time. We see dynamics all the time. We see how people speak to each other. We see we see people cry. We see people laugh. We see people get very angry. We see people walk out sometimes. You know? And so I always tell people, don't make me pull out my marriage counseling card. I have an honorary one, you know, because really and truly, you're both right. Yeah. You know, like, because one person has one standpoint and the other person has another, and you just have to kind of bring them together.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yes.
And then you hear things like, you never listen to me. And you know?
Yeah.
But the thing I love about real estate, too, is you learn so much about people in not only their relationships, but their childhood, just kind of like what we're doing now. You know, you go and you show a house and they're like, oh my gosh, this reminds me of when I was a kid. And, you know, it's just beautiful. You make lifelong friends in like 30 to 45 days.
Yes, that is a truth.
Yeah.
But you know, sometimes it also just depends on the agent that you are, and if you open yourself up for a relationship past the business relationship.
Yes. And you do have to open yourself up sometimes, you know, like, and some people don't want to, you know, some of your clients don't want to, but most of the time, especially at my age.
You think so?
Yes, because now I'm like your mom, right? Like I used to sell everybody I sold houses to was older than me. Okay. And then I got to where we were all the same age. And now it's like almost everybody's younger than me. I'm like, what? When did that happen? And so, you know, it's more like you're almost more like a mom role in some aspects, you know. But back to, not to change the subject, the thought of a relationship scares me on many levels.
It does.
But a lot because of what I see in real estate.
Oh, really?
The way I see people treat each other.
Yeah.
Because the real test of a relationship is stress. And when you get in a stressful situation, you're going to see the real person. It's just a matter of time. It's going to come out. And then you get to see that real, true dynamic. You know?
Yeah.
And I don't know that I really want to deal with that again. Yeah. I told God he has to come down and have breakfast with me if he wants me to be with somebody. Yeah. Or maybe a glass of wine. You know, he can turn water into wine. So we could do that too.
Yes. Yes.
Jesus would be like, it's okay, LaNell. He's okay. You can go. Yeah, so it's a little intimidating, yes. And I don't know if that's from the past or just the fact that I have been alone for so long.
Have you dated after the divorce?
Yeah.
How did that go?
Somewhat. It was okay. It's probably for a different podcast, but you know, nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, did you give him a try?
I like being single.
Yeah.
Real estate's very demanding.
Yes.
And you're always working weekends and nights, always taking late phone calls, you know, all that kind of stuff. So in that respect, it's hard to be in a relationship with somebody that's not in the industry.
You think so?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it can work because I know many people that are married and in real estate, but to start a new relationship, it's hard to date. And go out to dinner with somebody when you're showing houses till 9:00 at night, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe that one person can have the dinner ready by the time you get home showing homes.
Well, there you go. That could be too. But that means he has to be at my house or I have to be at his. And I don't know if I'm ready for that either.
That's too far down. That's advanced.
I need my inhaler.
That's advanced talk right there. Yeah, maybe that is a podcast for the next future years.
Yeah. That's funny. That's really funny.
Okay, so going back to you go to counseling. You are living in the same household. How long does it take until it's like, hey man, did you catch up with the program? Because I've been done with this. How long do you
It was
live?
a year.
A year.
Mm-hmm. It was a year.
Why do you think it took a year?
It just took a year to get divorced.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we were very entangled, right?
Oh,
two
that's
businesses, and
It was complicated.
I mean, I made it very easy because I walked away from everything. So it was like just get a piece of paper and say Frederick gets everything, and I'll sign it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think? Why do you think you made that? Would you make that choice again today?
Yes, that was the cost of my freedom.
Okay. So would you say?
Would I recommend that for other people? No. But for me, that was.
Would you say you did it more for going to bed without regrets or without feeling better? Like, what was the reasoning behind you making this choice? And you would make it again. So how does making this choice affect your life?
Because I got to go to bed safe.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so was it something that maybe you weren't worried that they were going to come back and just continue a fight or something? Like if things were to go split?
It was just safe.
It was just safe.
I just had to get out.
Wow.
I just needed to leave. The story about Tina Turner, I cannot compare my life to hers by any means, but there's a scene in that movie, What's Love Got to Do with It, when she's like, he can have everything.
Mm-hmm.
I just want my name.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's kind of where I was. I was just, you can have everything. I just, I want the kids. We split the kids, but,
How did the kids take
I want
it?
the kids to be with me. You know what? They did very well. I'm not going to say it was 100% a cakewalk, but I think I told him this. I tell everybody this. If you do get yourself into a situation where you're going through a divorce, if you put the kids first and he puts the kids first, you're going to be just fine.
Mm.
Where there's trouble is when you start using the kids in the middle and you start using the kids as pawns. That's just like what happened with me and my mom and grandmother. They weren't married, but every time she got mad, I'm coming to get my kid, even though she already gave me away.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's the same thing in between two people. So we kept our kids first. And I told my kids, I sat down, we talked to the kids, but I said, if you play it right, you're going to get 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays, 2 Easters. It's going to be a great life. Like, and I told them all they couldn't use that as an excuse to fail. Because you have 2 parents that love you very much. And there's no reason for you to use this as an excuse to fail in life.
That is wise.
Yeah.
That is wise.
I don't know if it was wise or a lot of pressure. You have to ask them. But I did mean that,
Yes.
because it's true. We did love them very much,
Yes.
So I think they did good. I think they did good.
Did you see any like any of them like struggling in any way, shape, or form with the separation that from your point of view?
From my point of view, no, not really, because I was so open and honest with them too. He actually sat down and told them what happened.
Okay.
He was honest with them. That takes a big man.
It does.
It
takes guts.
Mm-hmm. And he also told his family. He was honest with his family. Now I don't know how soon all that happened with his family, but I know with the kids were a lot older when he told them, but he did.
Okay.
He talked to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is a struggle that a lot of young men deal with, especially now with the internet. This is a big issue, sexual addiction and pornography and, all of that stuff that goes along with it it's a big issue.
Yes.
So
I think I may know the answer to this again, but I want to ask it anyways. It's what kept you pushing through all these struggles and just challenges you had to get through? Um, like how did you cope with these hardships? Because it's a lot, and it's a lot thinking it from where I'm sitting right now, and I'm sure I know nothing. And so I'm just curious to know more of how you coped all these nights and days, and you're still pushing, you're still, fighting to be better in life, to be and have, you have your family now, you're struggling to maybe give them a better life, maybe compared to, what you experienced. Um, how did you cope through these times, through these nights?
Yeah, it was God. It was 100%.
Like I said, I think I know the answer to that, but I want to know more. Like, it really was
So
that
before we got divorced, I was moving towards the ministry very quickly, and I was not looking to do that. But what happened through our company, or his company now. So remember the organizer I told you I had?
Mhm.
Okay, so I sold that company to him for $1. So he could take that name, and he used the organizer. We turned it into the Organized Maintenance Services, or OMS. So we started a Bible study through our business for our employees and for the kids. And so I was over the kids ministry, and he was over the older adults. And it started growing so fast. All the kids wanted to come. At first, we were driving to the office, but then I couldn't fit all the kids in the Suburban. So we started having it at the house. And, like all these kids would come. I love kids. And so, it was just growing so fast and exponentially. And then all of a sudden, I got asked to speak at a church, at his mom's church, for Women's Day. The pastor reached out to his sister and asked me to be the guest speaker. And I was just floored. I just couldn't believe. And then it just started happening. Like, people started inviting me to their church to speak, and they didn't even know me, and I certainly wasn't qualified, but I was moving in that direction very quickly. And the one part of me that Frederick could not have was my relationship with God. And that started to be an issue. And things...
Why do you think?
I don't know if it was a control issue, if it was a competition, if it was... I don't really know. I just know he started pointing out things I was doing incorrectly in his eyes. And so I told him, I said, Frederick, this is a part of me you can't have. This is the part of me that I've always been, so you can't have this. And I remember telling God, I just don't know that I can continue and be with him. I just don't think I can. So I was invited to a church to speak. And this particular morning, he was being very difficult. He was just being very hard. And he did not want me to speak that morning. So we were kind of known in the little churches that we went to. I mean, not that we were well known by any means, but the singing family, right? He has a beautiful voice, and all the kids can sing. They can make me sound good, but I don't sing well. I think I sing 5 notes good, and that's about it. But they would always ask us to get up and sing as a family, So on the way, I asked him at this church, because he was the man that asked me to speak was our former reverend. He had been moved from our church because it was a CME church, and the they moved the pastors around. Excuse me. So we were on our way to church that morning, and he, like I say, was being so difficult. So I asked him, I said, would you please sing when they ask us to sing? Because I don't want to get up and sing and then preach, right? I don't want to give the message too. Like, that would be so rude, right? I felt like that would be like, look at me. And he said no. He would not do it. And we went into the church. Sure enough, they asked us to sing. And he sat there with his hymnal open, would not come up. So I had to go up and sing by myself. And then I ended up giving the message. And I was so embarrassed because, you know, I never sing. I think I'd sing one time by myself. And so it was just, I remember thinking I was given the message, and I was like, I'm gonna divorce him. And I'm
As you were speaking,
and I'm giving the message, and I'm like, God, please forgive me. Like, I'm being so terrible right now. I'm just being so selfish, I felt. But in reality, it was not. He was just being very difficult. He was being very hard. He could be very hard, you know. I think a lot of men can, women can too. I mean, you know, we can all be hard. But I just remember that in particular, you know. But I would have strangers walk up to me and ask me to come and speak at their church. And it was just so amazing how fast it was all unfolding. But I knew this part of my life was not going well at all. Okay. So I had to
address it.
I had to address that. And so it kind of stopped everything. And I won't go into it on this podcast, but then I fell into a relationship I shouldn't have been in. Okay. After the divorce. And I couldn't be a hypocrite. So I had to get away from that, and now I'm going back down that path again.
Beautiful.
You know, God is
you're
like
picking it up.
Yeah, for the past several years.
Okay.
Moving in that direction again. Because, you know, here's the thing, you know, I greatly respect you. And I've told you that when you were my agent, when you blessed me with the opportunity to be your broker. I told you then how impressed I was with the way you handled yourself and the way you handled situations, difficult situations too, you know, because real estate can get difficult very quickly. And I always had a great respect for the way you address people. And you're very calming and you're very peaceful. And I think your ultimate goal is to bring peace, you know, and I love that about you. And that's why I know you're going to have longevity in your career, in this, whatever you decide to do. Because when you're that type of person, you're blessing people everywhere you go. So every moment of every day, we have the power to make somebody's day or to break somebody's day. And you make people's day all the time. And I love that about you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate the constructive criticism.
Yeah.
In a way where it tells me a little bit of how I'm doing and to give back. And I mean, honestly, I will say that if anything, I could, when I first spoke with you in a 3-way line, actually, like in that moment, I knew that you were like, I knew you were special.
Oh, thank you.
Because
Wait,
it's like, no, good. Yes, good. Because it's like, wait, okay, I'm looking to switch brokerages and I'm talking to the broker directly. And then the way you address me and just what was important to you was different, you know, and
ethics, being kind.
Yeah.
It's the most important thing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I felt it, you know, and I remember thinking like I need to in a sense listening to you and then later on meeting you. I It's funny, earlier you said that when you were working under some lady, you're like, that's how I want to be.
Yeah.
Like, you were so nice. I'm like, that's how I want to be.
Aw.
I want to be nice where it's uplifting, right? Because you know, I was switching at the time, and it's a different topic, but it just kind of talks about you, because you were literally like, I'm like, okay, she is so nice. She's a broker. She's doing her thing. I'm like, I need to prove myself that I'm willing, like I deserve to be under her, because I know you're like, you know, you didn't really take many people under your wing.
Yeah.
Or it just,
Especially new people.
especially new people,
Yeah.
it just kind of depends, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you probably just judge it case by case, but I'm like, I need to be on my A game, and I love the way you came across. I'm like, that's how I want to be. I want to be nice. I want to be open. I want to be love. You were loving from the very first beginning,
thank you.
for sure. I mean, and
It's totally God. It is. It's totally God. And I tell you, I feel that. I have such a strong connection in that love. That. So God tells us to, long before the phrase came out, walk in love, God gave me this message. And this was the first message I ever gave. And there's a difference in walking with love and walking in love. And we want to separate our lives, right? We have the business side of us. We have the, daughter side of us, or son side of us. We have the parental side of us. We have, we have the church side of us. And we want to separate those, right? We want to separate our lives. But what God tells us is to acknowledge Him in all of our ways, and He will direct our paths. So that's not just in some of our ways, right? That's not just when we feel like we need Him. That's not just when we're dealing with illness or, something big. I mean, these are all in all our ways. You know what, God? I want to go to the store. Which store should I go to? Right? You know what I need. Oh, God, send me angels. I need to go shopping. I hate to go shopping. Send me angels. Bless them to find what I need. Which store do I need to go to? And whatever pops in my head, that's where I go. I just listen. So God gave me this message of walking in love and with love is two totally different things. So if you're walking with love, right? And you're walking, let's say God is on your arm. And you're just like, oh God, I love you so much. I can't believe you're here with me. Da da da. And then somebody makes you upset. And you're like, hang on, God, I'll be right back. And then you go tell that person what you want to say, right? And then you come right back, and now you're walking with God again. Right? Well, the word God and love are interchangeable, right? So if you can't interchange it, it's not real. So now you're walking with love again, right? That's what most of us do. We all do it at some point, right?
I'm going to remember that.
But when you walk in love, when you walk in that circumference, it surrounds you. You're in the middle of it. And now when somebody makes you angry, you have to consciously make a decision to step outside of that circle. And God says, no, wait a minute, don't do that. Stay in here. I'll take care of it for you. Because I know why that person hurt you. I know what it is that makes them act the way they do. Let me help them. You don't have to tell them. Right? So when we walk in love, right? We're constantly walking with this swirling presence around us, right? So wherever you go, people can feel that. They should be able to feel it.
Mm.
When you walk into a room, you can change the room. People can sense it. Like you were on the phone with me and you could sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that wasn't me. It's partly me because God blesses me to be this way. But it's because I'm in that circumference, right? So when we walk in love, this is what he gave me, WALKINLOVE. When you walk in love, your hands are open. You're sacrificial, just like Christ was. Because when Christ died, he died with his hands open. And what did he say? He said, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do.
Mm.
So loving. They beat this man. They tortured this man. And he still, with his hands open, was walking in love. And it's hard to do, right? We can't do it in our own strength. It's impossible for us to do it in our own strength. So you can't separate your life, right? So real estate for me is my ministry, right?
Mm.
It is my way of showing people God's love.
Mm.
The most common thread that I get from people that I've met in my life is that I've changed their life, right? But it's not me. It's that love that I'm walking in, right? Because love is all powerful. And it does change. It changes people's lives. There's not a real estate deal that I've done that I have not gotten people via email, via text, via whatever, saying, thank you for your angels, LaNell. We need your angels more often. Your angels help do this, or your angel, because I always say, it's okay, guys. I have great angels. Don't worry about it. We'll get the appraisal. We'll get it approved. It's okay. It's going to work out.
Yes.
And I know for a fact I would not be sitting here today with all the stuff that I have been through. I would not be in real estate for 35 years without that love that God has blessed me with to know. Because there's a big difference between knowing and
understanding.
What's the word I'm looking for? Not understanding, but
Practicing.
to know God is different than reading about God, right? To read to read the Bible, to do to go to church, to do the whatever religion you are, the standing, the sitting, the praying, whatever it is you do, to go through the rituals of religion is a big difference. Not that that's not good, because it is. But when you know God, it's like having an apple in front of you. And you know it's fruit, and you know it's sweet, and you know it tastes good, right? In your mind, because you've read it. But until you try it, now you bit into it, and now you're like, now I know. Now I have a relationship with that apple. Now I know it's sweet. I know what it tastes like. Now I can crave it later. I think it's the same thing with our relationship, our spirituality, with everything we do in our life.
Yeah.
It's so important to carry that everywhere we go. And when God tells me to say something, I say it. Like, I don't hear him audibly. I don't want you to think I'm crazy. But there are distinct things that he has said to me in the past. He doesn't say a lot. He doesn't do it often. But there are times that he'll come and he'll say, like, it'll run through my mind. Tell her she has pretty eyes. Or tell her what a pretty smile she has, or him, or whatever.
Mhm.
I'll tell guys, I'm like, look, I'm not flirting. Trust me, that's not. But you have beautiful eyes,
Mhm.
or you have such a pretty smile, or you're so kind, or whatever. Because we don't know,
Right.
what that person has been through that day. And we can be uplifting everywhere we go,
Mm-hmm.
even when we're driving.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Right.
I would tell. I love 100% what you said. I think I have a few questions there. But I wanted to make this point real quick, and that is true because I lost my thought. Actually, I literally had like 3 questions when you were like
I'm
talking.
sorry.
No, you're good. No, that's actually perfect.
Oh.
Oh yes, it came back to me. So I was thinking about as you were saying this, my one of my aha moments to kind of think in that way, I guess. I don't know where, honestly, I read or I listened to, and it said when somebody is being ugly with you in whatever way that is, and you respond to that in say a similar manner, say you're trying to be, I don't know, respectful, right? And then maybe they make you mad, and so then you give in, and then you're ugly back at them.
Yes.
You lost.
Yes, you did. And I've lost many times.
And look, oh, same here.
Yeah.
That's why it was a huge aha moment for me, because I lost every time. I mean, I still do, but I try to lose less now since I heard that.
Yeah.
And it was that when you give in and you become what they are, you lost the battle.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I love sports. I like winning. And so when I heard when they said you lost, I'm like, wait, why?
I'm not going to lose.
How am I losing? Right? Like, this is a battle. And it's like, because you're being like good, or you come from a good place, that somebody comes along and maybe they're ugly with you. So then you lose all reasoning and you fall into what they want you to become, like them, ugly.
And then they get quiet, don't they?
Yeah, right, basically.
It's almost like they're satisfied.
Yes.
Yes.
Versus if you remain the person who you are and not react really is a key word here to how they're being with you, and you stay in your lane, and you don't give in. It's like maybe, and they won't, if they're mad, they're not going to admit it at the time, but maybe by the time they go to bed, they might rethink what they did, and maybe next time they won't be ugly to somebody else.
I'll tell you a story. I was at the title company. I won't call the name of it, but I was at a title company doing some notary work. And it was during COVID. I had just got over COVID, and I was very sick when I had COVID. Thought I was going to die. God bless me. I was able to make it. But it took me about a month to even really, it took me 3 weeks to break 103 fever. So I was like very, very sick. So anyway, I'm up there. These people were upset because they had to wear a mask. This is when masks were mandated. They were older. They were, not that it matters, but they were a white couple. And we walked to this back area that I was closing them in because of COVID. We all had to be very separated, right? Mm-hmm. So the first thing I did is I told them that I needed an $85,000 check. Okay, well, that started the blow up. The lady starts cussing. cussing me out. I mean, literally. I've been cussed at before, but I've actually never been personally attacked by a stranger. She told me all kinds of stuff about me that I didn't know. She threw her purse on the floor. A grown woman, like, threw her purse like a 2-year-old. Her husband is cussing. They call the loan officer. They're cussing the loan officer out. You told us we could wire the money. And I was like, well, you can, but you just won't get your keys today because it's already 3:00, right? So you have to, there's Bank of America just right up the street. But anyway, so back then we had the plastic what do you call that?
Dividers.
Yeah, the divider thing. So you push the papers underneath.
Mm.
Right? He throws his phone at me underneath, right? And he like really hard, and it was like, you talk to me. And then he reaches underneath it and he's like, oh, I forgot. You can't. It's the plandemic instead of pandemic, right? And he pulls it back to him. And whatever your belief is, I don't know. But the bottom line is, I know I had it. So,
Right.
to me, it was very real. So, someone had told them that I was getting cussed out. And they always gave me the hardest people when I was there, right? Because I was able to work with them and calm them down. Because by the time you get to closing, sometimes you're very frustrated, So, of course, no one knew this was going to happen. So the manager comes back there and she's, standing beside me, which I thought was awesome. And I just sat down because I was standing up because they were standing up and, it was just very volatile at the moment. And so finally I just sat down and I said, listen, I said, I know you're frustrated. And I said, but it's 3:45. I said, you still have time to make it to Bank of America. And I can give you your keys today. Right. So he's like, we're going to get a cashier's check. So it's like, hang on, let me write down the amount. We don't want any mistakes. Right. So I wrote it down for him. And she told the loan officer, she said, well, my effing husband just caved. We're going to get a GD, cashier's check. Right. So they're leaving, and the manager's standing there, and she says, okay, ma'am, but you just need to calm down. That woman turned around, came back to me, and was literally in my face, yanked off her mask, and was screaming at me. And I was grateful to be alive, right? I was just happy to be alive. So I don't know what it was on my face that she saw. It had to be God. Because I felt so much love for her. I don't know why. Because normally I would be very frustrated in that situation. And I probably would have walked away in a normal situation. But I don't know where it came from. Right? I felt so much love for her. And she's in my face and she did that. Like something scared her. Right? And she turned around and she was walking off. And then she told us to go F ourselves. Gave us the little finger. And, but I remember that look on her face. Right? I still, to this day, I have no idea what she saw. Because when they came back, they wouldn't let her come back. They wouldn't let them come back to me. So they closed her in a separate area with men there too. Because they didn't know if they were going to bring back weapons or, But they were very apologetic when they came back. And told them to personally tell me that they were very sorry for the way they had acted. But in that situation, that's a really good story of walking with love and walking in love.
Crucial.
Right? Because at that moment, I could have, my other side could have came out.
Yes.
which I have.
Responded.
And I could have responded and
Yes.
totally lost. But I bet you I would lay money that whatever she saw, she still sees.
Mm.
And I don't know what it was. I don't know if she just saw the love in my eyes or if it was sad. I don't know if God like showed his face. Like, I don't know what happened. I have no idea. Or if all of a sudden she could see herself.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know exactly what happened, but that's a really good example of
Perfect.
winning, right?
Perfect.
And then changing that person.
Yes. And that's where you win. Yes. Changing that person. Exactly. That's exactly the ending result basically of that example I was giving. It's like you want to turn around so they change their attitude to the one match, not to change, but to match your where you're coming from, the love, right?
Yes.
So either you give in to them and you become who they are. So if you think they're ugly, if you think they're mean, if you think they're whatever, fill in the blank, and you give in to that, that's what you become.
It's so true.
But if you, and you know, and like I said, like that was my aha moment when I listened to this. And it's like you either lose or they will guaranteed, they will go to bed thinking about that.
Mm-hmm. I
And
totally agree with
and
that.
maybe you can change them. Maybe they can join you versus you joining them.
Yeah. And then I had another situation where I did not do good. It was just a couple years
How
ago.
many of those?
Just a couple years ago. And it was a real estate deal. And this one actually made me cry.
Mm.
The agent was being very difficult.
Mm.
Very, very, very hard. I won't go into all the details. But I had a lot of choice words to say to her.
Mm.
I didn't say them to her. I said it after I got off the phone.
Mm.
But I said them all night long. Every time I thought about her.
Smart.
I was not calling her a nice name in my mind. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually called my daughter after this happened. My oldest daughter, Adair. All my children are very wise. They're very, very blessed. And she gave me some wonderful words of wisdom. And but that wasn't good enough for me.
Mm.
Even though she gave that to me, I was so mad. Oh, man. And I just kept calling this woman a terrible name all night long. But you know what I felt like God did? So this is so funny. Because the very next day, I had this deal fall in my lap that was the exact same sales price as this deal that I just wasn't making any money on at all. I mean, the exact same dollar amount. It was a couple I'd worked with, years before. They called me. They found a ranch they liked. Went out. We one time got the contract during the height of the market. Like, it was crazy.
Mm.
And so I told God, I said, you know what? I said, I thank you so much. Because I know I did so bad last night. And I said, and you turned around and you still love me and you still bless me with this wonderful couple. Made me feel so much better. So I felt like God just had me up on his shoulder that night. Like, it's okay. Just get it all out.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and call her all the names you want.
Yeah.
We know that's not in your heart. You're like, it was that night.
But you know what?
That
Key thing is that you didn't tell her these things.
no, I didn't.
Like I know you were so respectful with her on the phone, the best way you could be, very professional. I know already.
Yeah.
But then, you dealt with that yourself without spreading, say, the poison.
Yeah.
To her, whatever, made the situation, you prevented for the situation to get worse.
Yeah.
Than whatever.
It could have been very ugly. Yeah. If I would have
Mhm.
Yeah. I will tell you this. I'll never work with her again.
Mhm.
I can tell you that. I can promise you that.
You need to start writing some notes. Hey, where's that website that rates realtors?
Yeah, I would never harm her publicly, but I will never work with her again. But the thing, but that's drawing healthy boundaries for ourselves too.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Boundaries are necessary.
They are. They're very important. I didn't have them for a long time in my life, but now I do.
Speaking of boundaries, I think as you mentioned that is really key, because when we don't set boundaries and we deal with what we don't agree with, it's eventually a bubble that's gonna burst.
You're right.
However, if we do the hard thing right now, which is setting boundaries, it may save that friendship, that relationship, really, whatever it is, whether it's friendship or business, whatever. So boundaries. I think sometimes people are afraid of setting boundaries, including myself.
But you know what? You're very good at it. I mean, I witnessed that.
Me?
Yes. We won't go into detail, but you're very good at it. I thought you did. I thought there was a couple of situations where I saw you set some very healthy boundaries. I was very impressed.
I think boundaries are important. Because if you don't set boundaries, you're gonna end up almost being mad at the world until you realize it's yourself.
It's yourself, right? That's the wisdom my daughter gave me. She told me, she said, Mommy, she said, do you want me to help you? They still call me Mommy.
That's so cute.
Which I think is so sweet.
That is.
And they still call their dad Daddy, which I think is really sweet. But anyway, she said, do you want me to help you? Or do you just want me to listen? I was like, no, I want you to help me. I said, I respect you greatly as a businesswoman. I think she's very smart. Like I said, all my kids are. And I've gotten a chance to work with each one of them as an adult,
really?
one by one as an assistant with me. So I've gotten to see how they handle things.
Really?
Yes, and I love it.
I won't ask any questions there because
it was great.
Yeah,
all three of them.
Yeah,
and my youngest daughter's working with me now because she just had her baby. So, and it's wonderful to see them in that light, because now they're not just my kid, right? They're not my children. They're a coworker. They're adults. Yeah, they're adults, and they're,
yes,
they're assisting. They're helping me.
Yes.
Yes. I think I'm gonna grab some more too.
Yes, please do. I've already had like 3 refills.
Look here. Why am I not drinking any water? What's up with that?
Who needs water? Wine has water.
Wine has water in it.
Yeah, it has a percentage.
I read the label.
Yes. Look. Yes.
Thank you for the wine, by the way. But yes, I do. I tell people all the time, when I got ordained to be a minister, and I told my pastor before she ordained me, because she came to me and said that God told her to ordain me. And I was like, okay, well, there's a couple things you need to know. I partake of the vineyard often, right? I have no problem with gay people at all, and I will marry them. So if that's something you don't want, don't ordain me. I have no problem with that. I think everybody has the right to be happy and be with who they love.
Yes.
And then I told her some other things. That's another podcast. And she's like, well, that's good. Now I know God can use you. Yeah.
Okay. So with your daughters working with you
and son. So I have 2 daughters and a son.
Yes.
You know Cameron.
I remember. Yes.
Cameron was working with me when you were with me.
Oh, really?
Remember, because he was at the meetings that we were having.
Yes, he was there. Yes. And I know he was also like in at the same time, he was in the business of acting and
Yeah.
teaching other people. I know he had like somebody there he was teaching
Uh-huh.
and stuff. Very cool.
Stage combat.
Okay.
Yes. He was teaching. And now he's a theater teacher.
Okay.
Yeah. So he went to California. Then COVID happened. He came back home and then got a job offer. So now he's
I know
working
he
as a
had
teacher.
many job offers in the past, and he was pursuing his acting dream.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Very nice.
I would still love to see him do it. I think he's so animated.
He is.
It was ice here, right? I was in California when it iced over.
Okay.
And I just see a video of him. He sent his sister in a banana suit. And he's like sliding across the ice on his feet. He's like, be careful out there. It's slippery. I'm like, oh my God, you're so stupid. So crazy. It was fun. It's so funny. But he's got that charismatic.
He does.
Yes.
He does, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I remember meeting him when we would meet at your home for real estate classes.
Yes.
You get to teach us some things, and that's where I got to meet him. That's very cool. So he got married already, right?
He is married. They just bought their first home.
Beautiful.
And so I'm super excited for them.
That is exciting.
Yeah. And then my youngest daughter got married 6 months later, or 5 months later after him. And now she has a 5-month-old baby. Okay. And then, of course, my oldest daughter has her 10-year-old son.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one by one, they've gotten to work with me.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
For you and for them.
Yeah. I think so. It's probably kind of hard working with me. I have very high expectations. And they know this about me.
Mm-hmm.
I have. They had one job in school, and that was to do well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All the other stuff, I hope it works out for you.
Yeah.
I hope you do well in all the extracurricular activities, but your job is school, right? So high expectations in that, but I do feel like people rise to your level of expectation,
Yes.
So I might get on their nerves. You have to ask them, but
maybe I will adhere.
Yes, because maybe she'll do a podcast with you. She's the one you should be talking to.
Yes, I am. We're in the talks. I know she's very busy, but she will be. I told her, I know, because you guys were out of town, and I was messaging with her, and I said, you know what, you're really busy. You guys are going out of town. I'll just follow up with you. And so I definitely want to have her. I mean, and I told her, I said, hey, look. Like, it would be just like you. It'd be an honor to have her here, because I know she has, even though she's young, she's 32. You talked to me about her, and then she sent me some stuff about her, and I was reading.
She's done a lot.
She's done a lot.
For 32.
She's done a lot.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
So I can't wait till I get to know her better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll be fun to be on. Yeah, and then she can give you the dirt on me.
Hey, look, you said they're good, and they've done so much. There's a trend here, an apple doesn't fall far from its tree, they say.
I hope so. I hope they got that. But really for me and Frederick, because Frederick is also very entrepreneurial and very business minded, and
that's the thing, with relationships. Sometimes it's so weird. It's like sometimes you feel like you have to put him like in a box, and they don't have to be in a box. It's just a part because of your personal relationship with that particular person, but that they can have. They do have so many other good qualities, that it's hard to put people in a box, but we're just so used to doing that based on the information we've obtained in the past. Or you're this, you go into this file cabinet, this category, versus
you're just a sorry so-and-so, and I'm never going to let you out of that box.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
very crippling.
Yes.
For yourself
for
and
our
that person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because then you get stuck. You know, you get stuck in that, in that moment, you know, instead of letting that person grow. And let me say this, since I did divulge, you know, information about our marriage, I will say that I honestly believe he never meant to hurt me. I don't ever think that was his intention.
Yes.
I think he was just caught up, as so many of us get caught up.
Yes.
You know?
I feel that. And I feel that, and I say that because when I think about that, I think about the times maybe that I've hurt people based on what I've said or how I've said it, based on how I felt at the moment. And, you know, when you sometimes look back at situations or scenarios, you're like, oh, dang. Like, I messed up. Like, I was so ugly. Like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
You know?
And will they forgive you?
Yes.
I'm writing a book.
Okay. Tell me about it.
Yes.
What is it about?
It's about the spiritual aspect of life. And I actually wrote a sermon on this.
Okay.
On that very thing. It's so easy for us to be accusatory and angry and unforgiving towards somebody that did something. But what if that person was you? And then it goes from there. You know, that's just going to be one part of it.
What if that person was you?
What if that person was you? What if you're the person that caused the harm? What if you're the person that caused the hurt? Would you want to be held in that box, as you said, forever? That file cabinet?
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Or would you want to be forgiven and have a second chance?
Yes.
You know? And over the years, I've written many, many, many things. And now I'm compiling all of these things. And I'm putting it into a book.
Okay. So you've written many things. Do you keep a journal?
I do not. Now, I have kept a grateful journal. A thankful journal. For the things I'm thankful for. Okay. On a daily basis.
How old is this journal?
Oh, I just did it. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was 2020. This is 2023. Maybe it was 2021, because I think it was after I had COVID. That's when I started meditating. It was after I had COVID.
Okay.
I read this wonderful book. Can I say the name of it?
Yes, please.
So I read this wonderful book by Dr. Wayne Dyer called Manifest Your Destiny.
Okay.
I listened to it. Like I say, I read it. I'm not much of a reader, but I love to listen to stuff. So I listened to it on audio. I've listened to it 3 times now. And at the end of that book, it teaches you how to meditate. So I tried it. Never thought I could be still for 20 minutes without talking. What? You can tell how much I love to talk. And I did it. And it was life-changing. So now I have a meditation room.
Okay.
Yes, at my new house. I haven't, bought a house I'm redoing. And I have a space to write in. I have a meditation room.
What does that room look like?
The meditation room?
Yes.
Has all my favorite stuff in it.
Okay, like what?
Oh my gosh, it's great. So my favorite movie of all time is It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay.
So one of my customers, let's just say client, got me a life-size poster of It's a Wonderful Life and had it framed. I'm going to say it's life-size. It's probably like 5 feet. Oh, so amazing. So this movie, if you don't know it, it's an older movie. It's in the top 100 movies of all time. I think it used to be like number 3. I don't know what it is now. But this man has a chance. It's black and white. They've redone it in color, but this man actually has his Jimmy Stewart, if you know who that is. But if you ever get a chance to watch it.
I will.
It's amazing. He gets to live life like he was never born. Right? And he gets to see what life is like without him in it.
Okay, kind of seeing it from up here. No.
Living it.
Oh, living it.
He actually gets to live life in the same town with the same people like he was never born. And it shows you the impact that one person has on so many lives. And this is what this book talks about, Manifest Your Destiny. It talks about one person with elevated thinking, how many lives that can change. I have to go back and listen to the numbers, but it's amazing. It's infectious, actually. You know, we have a lot of hate in our country right now. We have a lot of hate in the world. But there's also a lot of good in the world. There's a lot of good people in the world.
Yes.
And things like this, you know, it uplifts people.
Yes.
But anyway, so my room, it has that little corner. It's a Wonderful Life corner. And one by one, this is so amazing. This is how I know God does it, right? I told him I wanted a meditation room, so I got the poster. And then out of nowhere, didn't even tell anybody, my sister bought me the script of It's a Wonderful Life.
Stop.
Yeah. And then my grandbaby had saw a magazine, like a special edition with It's a Wonderful Life on it. And they got me that.
Stop.
So I'm like, now I have this whole little corner of It's Wonderful Life. I have my freedom, what I call my freedom pictures. Some artwork that I bought right before I got divorced that he had said I could not buy, and I did anyway, which I never did because I was so submissive. So I called those my freedom pictures because I took those two when I left.
Okay.
I took my pictures.
Yes.
It's only two.
Hey.
And then I have wine racks that one of my very best friends got me. And each wine bottle is a year of when my children were born.
Very.
Yeah. And then I have a picture of family rules, you know, like love and respect each other. You know, we're kind to each other. We say kind things. Yeah. And then I have uplifting books.
Okay.
Oh, and I also love the movie Bridges in Madison County. So I have that book in there. Never saw that movie. It's a great movie too. These are great movies. You know, you're so young.
I'm not even writing them down because I have to review this podcast anyway. So I'll be writing down all this stuff. And look, I will see these movies and I will listen to these books because I do like listen. I listening just it's easier because you can listen to them on your way on when you're driving.
And we spend so much time in the car.
Yes.
Those realtors. Oh my gosh.
Yes. So it's like all these different times that you can just, you know, hear. So I will. Like I definitely will because all of what you're saying right now, you're speaking my language.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yes. And I want to know like so in this meditating room like when you meditate, do you turn off the lights? Do you light a candle? What do you do?
So I do have like a whole ritual. So
yes.
I have a bean bag.
Okay.
Like one of those big ones. 5 foot. You know, the 5 real fluffy ones. I thought I was going to meditate in that, but I'm a little old. It's hard to get out of it. So I just let my grandbaby do that. I have a daybed in there, so I sat on a daybed. But my oldest daughter, Adair, bought me a oil diffuser. So I start that. And then I have this music that I play by Dr. Wayne Dyer. It's called I Am Meditation. So whatever, and I knew this before I heard this, but I intuitively knew it. Okay. But whenever God's trying to talk to you, he will present it to you many times in many different ways. So when you said you want to learn how not to ask the same question different ways, I think that's a great thing to do. Because now you're coming at it from a different angle and you'll get a different answer. Right? Because now you're making somebody think in a different way. Right? So anyway, during the meditation part of my day, which is in the morning, I try to do it every morning. don't always make it, but I try to do it every morning. But when God's trying to get a message to you, he'll give it to you in many different ways. So I started hearing from several different things I listen to that whenever you say the word I am, whatever you say I am follows, and that's what you are.
Okay.
I am tired.
Mm-hmm.
I am sick and tired.
Mm-hmm.
I am frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
I am upset.
Yes.
I am weary. I am whatever. I am angry, whatever it is. So what I did is I looked at this from this book, the I Am meditation. So there's a vibratory frequency to words in the Hebrew language. You have to listen to the way he says it much more eloquently than I ever will. And they have tuned this vibration to music.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this music that you can listen to. So I listen to that while I'm meditating. So I meditate for 25 minutes. And then at the end of that 25 minutes, sometimes I do longer if I want to, right? Sometimes I don't have 25 minutes, I do 15. But I try to do 25. And then at the end of that, I do my I am affirmations. So I say things like, I am kindness. I am kind. I am. Because that's a verb and a noun. Right.
Right.
I am generous. I am generosity. I am love. I am loving. I am wealthy. I am wealth. I say things like this. Do that for 5 minutes. Also bring healing to myself. I've been dealing with things with my health that aren't the greatest, but so I bring health. I am in perfect health. I am healthy. I am whatever it is. I am thin. That's my goal. I'm calling it like it is.
Yes.
I'll get back there one day. Yes. But I am whatever it is I want to be. I am. And that's just when God introduces himself to Moses, he says, I am that I am. That's how big he is. He didn't say I am one thing I am. He said I am that I am. So whatever you want to put in that, that's who God is. It's crazy.
That's crazy.
I am everything, right? He's everything. So if he said this speaker was pink, it would be pink because he can't lie, right? So whatever he is, I am that I am. It's confusing when you hear it that way, but when you think of it in the other sense, so that's how I start my day. I will say that many people that come to my house tell me how peaceful my home is. But I really believe that's it. Well, I know it's God, always. But I also know a lot of that's coming from that meditation. Because it's just so calming.
Yes. So I've been using this application called Breathe. It's a meditation app.
Oh, really?
And yes, and I first downloaded it in 2020. Nobody knows what they're doing with their life in 2020. Everybody's rethinking their life choices.
It's crazy.
And like COVID, right? So I download this Breathe app, and you mentioned this sound that has like vibrations and stuff, and they have like all these like different types of even meditation. They have breathe meditation, and these other things, and I love how you mentioned like these affirmations, and these affirmations aren't really, it's not like, oh yes, just say this and it's just gonna happen, right? Like it's just, oh, that's all you gotta do. Like No, but I think if you really focus and like think about it, and you give yourself, you're open for the open in the meditation, like you're not like skeptical, you just kind of give yourself in and just, okay, you're gonna, there's these people in your headphones guiding it, and you just let it be. I think that that makes us, I don't know, you tell me, you meditate, and I'm a noob in meditating. I've been trying to, you know, sometimes like my mind just kind of goes and wanders, so I feel like there's still a lot of discipline that I need to do to kind of like with meditation.
I don't need discipline.
No,
No,
okay.
it's okay. It's normal.
Because my mind wanders.
It's normal. So what you do when you realize your mind is wandering, you just bring it back. And you're just like, it's okay. Just let that thought go. And then you just bring it back. You know? But when you read the book, Manifest Your Destiny, and he talks about stuff like that at the end. He talks about how to meditate.
Okay.
But no, you're right. Your mind does wander. And sometimes it takes me like a good 10 minutes just to get my mind calmed down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to me, what I think it's like when I start like wandering off, I'm like, I need to be conscious of like what's going on, because I feel like even in real life, things come and you forget that you're doing, and you just kind of like so you have to, so it brings awareness to your thoughts and where your focus is at.
Right.
And what I've found it helpful, it's in real life, sometimes, you know, things happen and I kind of go back to my old self and be the person that maybe I don't want to be. But then catching yourself and realizing, I'm like, oh, it's kind of like in meditation when, you know, you're trying to be focused and then you start wandering off. But if anything, me wandering off in meditation kind of makes me realize in real life circumstances, I'm like, oh, that's me losing conscience of what's going on in reality.
Yeah. So what meditation does, I believe, is it brings awareness to the present moment. Because most of us live in the past, or we live in the future.
Yes.
But that's not where God is, right? God's not in the past because he's doing a new thing. He's not in the future. He has good plans for us, but that's not where he is. He's in the present. So if you want to meet God, that's the intersection that you meet him at, is in the present moment. And that's what meditation does.
Okay.
That's what worship does when you go to church. That's why worship is so powerful. That's why when you walk in to a church, if you go to church or any type of spiritual setting, and there's a lot of people like worshiping, it's because they're all in the moment. They're not thinking about yesterday. They're not thinking about tomorrow. They're thinking about the present moment. It's very powerful. It's extremely powerful. And then you come to, because that's really all we have is the present moment. You know, I listen to
Sadhguru.
I'm gonna say his name wrong.
Sadhguru.
Yes.
Stop.
Yes. Love him.
Yes.
Love him. And he was like, "What do you mean it hurt you?" He's like, "They're not poking you right now. Like that happened a long time ago, you know." And it makes so much sense. It's so simple, but it makes so much sense because you're in the present, right? You're in the present moment, you know.
Yes.
And that really is where you meet God.
You know what Sadhguru also said?
What?
I thought this was an aha moment for me because it kind of like made sense. It put some pieces together of the puzzle. Actually, two things, because that just reminded me of something else he does say about puzzles. But anyways, the first part is if I sit here and I tell you something in a different language and you hear it, you don't understand what it says, what I say, right? And so if I say something insulting in a different language, you might look at me and smile and laugh and maybe think I'm saying something nice because you don't understand what I'm saying, right? So it's how you're receiving it. But if I sit here and tell you something that's same thing, insulting, but in the language you understand, and then you take like, and then you respond to it. So what is the difference of me saying the same thing in the language you understand versus the language you don't understand?
That's awesome.
I was
I
like,
love that.
that was my face.
Yes, that's mind blowing.
That's mind blowing.
That is so crazy.
And let me,
great.
I spoke about pieces about like puzzle, and I'm gonna tell you one more thing that I learned about him that for me was like, oh. He said most people figure out a few pieces of the life puzzle and they think they figured out the whole picture.
Yes.
And they don't realize that there's millions of pieces to the puzzle. They figured out, they put a few puzzles, they connected a few pieces. Now they think they've realized they know the whole world and how it works.
That's so beautiful. I used to tell my kids when they were little, going through middle school, high school, I was like, guys, this is such a small part of your life. I know it seems so big right now,
Mm-hmm.
but in the grand scheme of your life, this is like a little bitty part. You know, I promise you this will pass.
Yes.
It's going to get better.
Yes.
You know, but I think we need to hear that in our everyday lives.
And I'll tell you, the answer is yes. Because sometimes, not sometimes. I mean, I was just talking to Logan about this. I'm listening to Jim Ron right now.
Oh, I don't know him.
I've been listening to the same video, the same piece for the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
And repeat.
Okay. I have to listen to him.
And this was something that was recorded before the 90s. I think it was about to be the 90s because he keeps talking about when the 90s get here.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's so relevant to today. These are the fundamental, like,
truth is truth.
I tell Logan,
Truth
like,
doesn't
I
change.
cannot stop listening to him.
Listen to who I just discovered.
I will.
So, Florence.
Oh, okay. Somebody else.
Florence Scovel Shin. She was a writer in the 20s. She wrote a book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And it just popped up on out of nowhere. Somewhere, on my YouTube thing.
On your feed.
Search. And it was what she does so well. Just the fact that people would listen to her in the 1920s as a woman was phenomenal. Yes. But what she does is she really takes the word of God and she applies it to our everyday life. And how what it really means, and how to, and this is the way I think. And when I read it, and now here I am trying to put this book together, right? And when I read it, when I was listening to it, I was like, Dr. Wayne Dyer said he learned from teachers. When you're ready, the teacher shows up. Right? And I'm like, this is exactly the way I think. Like the way she's talking, I was like, this is amazing. Wow. So I have to listen to this guy now. His name is
Jim Ron. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I'm going to take a quick pause.
One thing I didn't finish when I was telling you about the walking in love thing. I do want to make this point real quick. So, when I told you it's WALKINLOVE, right? Yes. Right. And because we should walk with our hands open. But most of us walk with our hands closed. Because you hurt me. And you don't deserve to get close to me. You don't deserve my love. Right? And
I see that.
Yes. And it's so, when you really envision yourself like that, like, but you hurt me. Like you don't get to love me. You don't get my love. I'm withholding my love from you. God says he withholds no good thing from us, you know? So as we're walking in love and we're practicing that, right? And we walk with our hands open, we're going to get hurt. It's just part of it. It's just part of the deal. You know? Every person that's come with a love message, a true love message, gets hurt, right? Yeah. Ultimately with their lives most of the time.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But it's because that message is so powerful. You know, you can have a church that does everything. You can have a church that feeds people. You can have a church that gives away backpacks. You can have a church that does all this stuff, right? But if that church is really, truly walking in love, I mean, really and truly, it's going to have trouble. It's going to have trouble. And it takes strong leaders to keep that together. You know?
I can see that.
Because that's the message that the evil that is. I'm not going to say there's one power that's evil, but the evil that is, because we do know there's evil out there.
Do you think it's important to think about what those what evil things people can do?
Do I think it's important to think about that?
To know, to be aware, to think about it, to think how they think.
I think it's smart to be aware of your surroundings, but I also believe that God has a way of protecting us. You know, do you know Joyce Myers? Do you don't know of her?
No.
So she's a evangelist. She has a great ministry. She was sexually abused her whole life by her dad. So she has a wonderful story. You know, she's tough. She's like gruff. You know. Very loving, but she's like got this tough exterior, you know?
Okay.
And so she said she had to learn, she always had a great love for God, but she had to learn how to be softer, you know, because of her experiences that she went through. So to say that evil doesn't exist, I think would be putting your head in the sand.
Right.
So I do think we need to be aware because then we can help people that are in bad situations. You know, or keep ourselves out of a bad situation.
Right.
And listen to that inner voice.
Right. Inner voice.
Because that is everything.
Do you think maybe we have to be careful which inner voice we listen to?
I call it following your peace.
Okay.
So there's a deep down knowing that we have inside of us. And it's like in your gut, you know. I tell my kids this all the time, you know, follow your peace. Because when you're not peaceful about something and you do it anyway, you always end up in trouble. Right? You always know, like there's just something that's gnawing at you and saying don't. And you probably know it very well as a mother, that mother's intuition. Right? Like you just know. Like it's just some things you just know. You know when your baby needs to be changed. You just know. You don't have to smell. You don't have to. You could be in the other room and you just know. You know? And it's that kind of knowing that we have. All of us have it. Men, women, all of us have it. Now, as a mother, I think it's on 9,000. Right? Because you're just so in tune with your kids. Like, for instance, my son got his hand stepped on one day in football practice. And I'm sorry, that's my phone. Do you want me to go put it on silent?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's that deep down knowing that, you know, like I say, as a mom, you have it on 9,000. But I think everybody has it. And so my son got his hand stepped on when he was in football. I wasn't even with him. I didn't even know it happened. And I almost passed out at this exact moment that it happened. because the football coach called me just about 5 minutes later, and he's like, "I'm so sorry." He's like, "Cameron just got his hand stepped on. His knuckle kind of came through, like it looked like it was trying to come through the other side." And he goes, and he almost passed out. I was like, "When did this happen?" He's like, 5 minutes ago. Right. There's many stories like that, but that's just an example
Many stories like that.
of how connected we are with our children. You know, you just know. You may not know what, but you just know. Well, God gives us that same knowing deep down. I call it our internal GPS system, you know. And when you follow that, when you follow your peace, that inner voice, because there's the voice that is in your head all the time that is like, "Oh, just do it," and you justify it, but if you have to justify it, there's a reason you're having to justify it.
You don't want to see that reason, maybe.
Yeah, there's a reason. You just have to search for it. Why am I trying to justify this? You know? But that's the voice we really need to get to. Is that deep down, inner, peaceful voice.
Peaceful. Yeah.
And you just know when you go in that direction, it's like what you were saying now, like you feel like you're doing something right. You know, it's not because you're talking to me, it's because you're stepping into your destiny. So when you're stepping into your destiny, you're going in the right track, you're in the flow. Right?
The flow.
And when you're in the flow, it's peaceful. Not that challenges won't come, but you can overcome them. Right? But sometimes we get in the flow where everything is hard. Oh my gosh, it's so hard. It's just like going uphill with, 60 pounds of rocks on your back, you know?
I literally pictured a rock.
Trying to push it uphill.
It's so funny. Yes.
And it's just so hard, you know?
Yes.
And that's not the peaceful way. Right.
Right.
Because when it's peaceful, things just happen and they open and they go easy.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And back to real estate, which is so intertwined with everything I do, right? 35th year in May in real estate, and in the industry I've been licensed for 33 years. So but I pray for every single person I work with. When I have a listing, I pray to God that He brings me the buyer He wants in the home. When I'm trying to find a home for somebody, I pray that God blesses me to find the home He wants them in.
He wants them in, not the home they want.
Not the home they want, or that I want them to have.
That the home that
He wants them in.
Okay.
Let that door open. Close the other doors. Let that door open. Literally close those doors. And He does all the time. But He's never, ever, ever failed. Yeah. So I tell Him when I get to heaven, if it's true that we have mansions, that's like the Bible says. I don't know if that's figurative or if it's literal, but I want to be the one that shows those houses. Be like, "Hi, come on in. Welcome to heaven."
Yes. So let me see your resume. Here it is.
This is your house and you don't have to qualify.
Yes. Yes.
You made it.
Okay. That is very interesting. So, earlier you mentioned Sadhguru, so you're familiar with who he is.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of people, and I really like him.
Yes. Look. Logan might get tired of me like talking about all these people, but I wasn't a Sadhguru kick for a while. I mean, because I like right now it's Jim Ron, right? So like I'm listening to the same video for like the past 2 weeks, but Sadhguru, I was in his kick for like months, and I can still go back to it. And there's times where if I'm feeling like I'm overthinking things, or if I can't come up with like if I'm feeling confused, if I'm just I need I need wisdom. I go to Sadhguru.
Yeah.
Because it's like
Yeah, he has a lot of it.
It's like an anchor, right? Where he puts things so like so simple yet so fundamental,
Yes.
right?
I totally agree.
And so one of the things he says, and I want to ask you this question, because one of the things he says is if heaven, if like sometimes, as he says, people are always trying, or like people think like, oh, once I get to heaven, once I die and go to heaven, things will be great, right? And he's like, how do you know this is not heaven right here and you're making a mess out of it?
That's a good point. It's a very good point. I do believe that the kingdom of heaven is within us. And I do think it's here and now. I don't think we have to wait for a better life. I think we can live it here and now. Yeah. That's what Jesus said. He said, I come so that you can have a better life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So you can live life and live it more abundantly.
Yes.
You know, enjoy it. We got to live it anyway.
Yes.
May as well have a good time.
Yes.
You know?
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed. And so, you know, things like that puts it kind of like, it kind of grounds it, and it's like, yes, like it's in me to make this life better. Because when things get rocky, when things get real, it's all up to you. Like you, and it's nobody is going to come down here to save you and say, here, you know, it's within you. And sometimes the people may show up, but it's within you.
God will send people to help you. But you're right. It is within you.
To see that. Because, you know, I think about it just like you mentioned the way you grew up. Since you have memory, you've had this sense of feeling love towards your surroundings. And so this has enabled you to keep pushing through life, right? In a sense, right? It's because you didn't have somebody to go to. You didn't have like a teacher where you would go and give them your problems and they would tell you suggestions of what to do. Like, to me, that's impressive. That's impressive because I don't think I could do that. Like, if I was going through something hard, like, I think, I don't know, I guess, but I think I would, to me, I find that impressive that you were able to deal with that, with all of that for years.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Seriously.
I do think
because
we're very resilient.
You know,
humans.
And it's one thing, like when you're like, okay, well, I had this teacher I went to, and it's like, okay, what's tough? You know, it's awesome you found this person. But for you, God, you had nobody.
Well, I had God. I had the most
Well,
important person.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, but like physical people that can give you, it's like, hey, watch out for this, or give you advice, or watch out for this, watch out for that. No. All of it you had to figure out within you. Mm-hmm. And I cannot comprehend any of that. And you know what? Speaking of, okay, I'm going to give you Jim Rohn. Uh-huh. Jim Rohn said, I told you about Jim Rohn already.
Yes.
He said, sometimes when you do things like when you start learning, educating yourself, and discipline, like having discipline about what you do, there are things in life that will happen that you never imagined. And those things are called miracles. Mm-hmm. And it's because we don't understand how that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, so I used to try to understand why things happen the way they happened. He goes, so I learned to just let it all go, because that's one of the things of mysteries of life, that we don't know why things happen the way they happen. But you just do what you need to do and let it happen, and stop trying to figure out why things happen. They just live it, right? And to me, I'm like, that's so amazing, because I think a lot of us, including myself, are constantly trying to find ourselves and trying to, okay, I'm going to do this, and trying to control what the outcome will be. And he's like, if you try to control what the outcome will be, I mean, it's almost like we're shortchanging ourselves, because sometimes the outcome can be so much bigger than we can even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So just let it be.
Yeah. I've learned that over my years in real estate, because, real estate can be very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Chris.
Mm.
Chris tells me all the time, he's like, you could be doing so much more. You could just do so much more, and I'm like, you know what? I just don't want to push it. Right. When God gives me somebody, I'll work with them. He blesses me with great people. And I just don't feel the need to be competitive. I don't feel the need to force an outcome. I feel like if it's supposed to be, it will be.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, and God's ready for me to move on, he'll show that to me, because it'll be pushing that rock. It's the same thing. It'll become very difficult. And but I think that's a great thing to say. Just let it happen. My sister was very ill this summer, and she died 4 times on the table. The first time was with me. And so I saw her. I saw the life leave her body. I just saw her go totally limp. And she had double pneumonia. She needed a triple bypass. They couldn't do it because of the pneumonia, so they tried to do a stent. The stent failed, and she died 4 times. And it was a 2-month stay in the hospital. And I was with her the whole time. And it was very stressful, and it was very, she has 4 kids from 42 down to 22. And her husband was stressed. The kids were stressed. They all pulled together. It was, it was a beautiful thing. But, you want the outcome to be this, right? She was on full life support. She had 4 or 3 machines hooked up to her. She had 8, I think it was 8 IVs going. She was on full life support. And the doctor comes out and he's talking to us, right? And he says, I hate that this happened. She was only 60. Right? She's fine now, by the way. She's great. Full recovery, amazing. Like, she couldn't even put a spoon to her mouth after this happened. Like, we didn't know if she was going to have a full recovery. Yeah. But anyway, so the doctor comes out and he's telling us that, he just hates it when this happens. And so he's trying to tell us what, happened. And so I don't know why or how, but God blessed me with this incredible strength, because I am a crier. And I did not cry. The whole time she was in the hospital. Not one time. When she left, I cried. When she went home. But the whole time she was there, he just blessed me with this incredible amount of strength. But what I found interesting was the doctor was talking to us, and her husband was very upset. He leaves. He walks out. Not saying that's right or wrong. I understand. He probably didn't want to hurt him. Because he's probably very upset with his doctor. And so I asked him, I said, first off, thank you for saving my sister's life. And thank you for everything that you did. And I said, we do understand what you're saying. And I said, but let me ask you a question. How are you doing? And he was just fighting back the tears, you know? And he just hung his head and he was saying the same thing. He's been a doctor for a very long time. He's an older gentleman. And he said, I just hate it when things like this happens. It makes me not want to come back, And I said, well, again, I just want to thank you. And I said, let's just see what God says. And in my mind, he did not say this. In my mind, I knew she made it past the 24 hours. The first 24 hours, she was going to be okay. So the next day, 24 hours later, right around, I see him. And I was like, she made it. She made it 24 hours. He's like, oh, it's still very serious. He was very bleak. And so every time I saw him, I was like, she made it another day. Like she made it another day. She made it another day. Finally, at the end, right when they were taking the last life support thing off of her, the breathing thing, he said, no, she may be very loopy. She may not know who you are. She may not know, still being very, pessimistic, which I understand. He's trying not to give us false hope. And he says, Tamara. And she opened her eyes popped open. And he goes, do you know who I am? And she shook her head, yes. And he goes, well, maybe I'm wrong. He goes, I've been wrong about everything else. And he laughed and he walked out. That's the last time I saw him.
Really?
Yeah, it's the last time I saw that doctor. She had several doctors after that, but wow, that was really crazy. But the compassion that I showed him at that moment, I know meant everything to him, because I could have been very different, and I could have been very angry. I could have also walked away,
Okay.
But I think that inner voice, that peace that passes all understanding, is what we need to tune into in those times. Because guess what? I couldn't control that outcome. He couldn't control that outcome. Nobody could control that outcome.
Right.
It just was not her time.
Right.
Every bone in her chest was broken from them doing compressions for 45 minutes.
Stop.
Black, blue, green, purple, egg-sized contusion. I mean, she went through it, almost lost her leg. Like, there's just a lot of things that happen. But she is in 100% full recovery. Still had to have the open heart surgery, by the way, but that was 2 months later.
Wow.
2 months after she got out of the hospital. So it was just amazing. It's an amazing story. But my point is, we can't really control any outcome in our life, but we think we can. Right.
We want to. We want to think we can.
Yeah. If I work hard, I do this and I save, I'm going to have this much when I retire, and I'm going to be able to not do this. And
Yes.
A, B, C, D, check.
Yes.
But then life happens.
Yes.
And sometimes it doesn't turn out the way we think it is.
Yeah.
But God is still there. And that's how it was for me growing up. It was just my life. So I don't see it. Have you ever seen the movie August, Osage County?
No.
Okay. That's a movie, I was like, who read my life and put it on screen? Like, it's a play, and they turn it into a movie. Meryl Streep and Julia Roberts plays in it. It's a great movie. So close to my real life, except my grandmother. She was that mean, but she wasn't a drug addict. Meryl Streep plays the mom, and she's a drug addict, and that's why she's so mean. But she was mean all by herself. But when you live it, you don't see it.
What would be your advice for people that are stuck in a situation where they can't maybe see where they're at, but they feel something is not right, but maybe they just have no clue where to go, who to talk to, what to think?
It was kind of like my life with my ex-husband. Right. I didn't know. It sounds so stupid to say, but I really did not know. You gotta listen to that voice.
You gotta listen to the voice.
You gotta know. And when it's not right, it's just, don't justify it. It's just not right. Maybe if I wouldn't have done this, he or she wouldn't have reacted this way. You know? Or maybe if I was more like this, it would be better. You're justifying.
Yes.
But my biggest advice is to listen to that inner voice and to know that there's a better life. If you're in a bad situation, there is a better life. And I think as older women, we don't reach back and help our younger women like yourselves like we should. Right? We don't help you. We're so, in one way, we're so connected because of the internet and everything that goes along with that, our phones. But in another way, we're so disconnected. How many neighbors do you know? How much about their lives do you know? Hardly anything, right? Because nobody has time. So we're all live in these little islands, you know, and we don't know how to reach out for help. If I would have known and I would have spoken up, if I would have talked to somebody, I would have known it wasn't right. That it wasn't just me, you know? But I was so protective because we were an interracial couple. I was too scared to talk to anybody about anything because you know why? It's because you're in an interracial marriage. That's why. Of course, that's what it is. It had nothing to do with that. Nothing at all. But that's, in my mind, that's what I felt like I was going to hear. So and again, I thought it was normal.
You thought it was normal.
But I knew something wasn't right. You know? You can't be that unhappy and something not be wrong. Right. You know?
On that note, what does happiness mean to you?
I think for me, it is not it's not a state. Like, it's not one thing that happens that makes you happy, you know? It is life itself. It should be happy for you. And although I know there's a lot of responsibilities that we have and there's things that we do that we don't like, overall, life should be a happy journey. You know, so to me, if it's a state of happiness, it can be taken from you. Okay. Right? Yeah. It has to be a presence of happiness. And I really believe that comes from love. And I truly believe that that comes from God. Because again, God and love are interchangeable.
God, I love that.
So when you have that, there is a happiness. There's an underlying happiness no matter what happens.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So we've been going for over 3 hours.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Going
oh my gosh.
On 4.
41, that's crazy.
So, and look, I would love to dive into the meditation, more into the meditation and stuff, and more of the stuff you even talked about. And I mean, I know there are several things you said, hey, we'll leave. This is a conversation for another podcast. So if you enjoy this, hopefully we'll be able to have another podcast.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to come back.
I also want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah,
and I
think it's very sweet of you to have me this long.
I am grateful for your time being here. The podcast, I don't think it's going anywhere. So I would love to have you as a guest another time and continue diving into this topic and further ones. I appreciate you being here and sharing your experience, your journey, your life, your thoughts, everything with us. I really, really do.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening.
Yes. And so I wanna end this note saying with saying that I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your knowledge. I appreciate you sharing your story because look, I know sometimes it's not easy. It's not easy, especially when you know it's going to the World Wide Web, the www dot. You know,
What was that again?
yes. So,
What's this thing you speak of?
yes.
Yeah, it's really not so hard. I want to speak my truth, and I ask God when because He's put this in my spirit for many years to write a book. I don't even know if anyone will read it, but I do want to speak my truth because I asked God, what do I do? And that's exactly what He said. And I'll end it by saying this. When I was young, it's before I had my first child. I was listening to a sermon before I went to work that day at Sovereign Homes on a Sunday morning. And the preacher that was preaching was talking about hell, fire, damnation, all the terrible things that, that come along with being bad and going to hell. So I asked God, I was like, what about the love? And He goes, you tell him.
Mm.
Like so clear in my head. And I was like, you're crazy. And I started laughing.
Stop.
I was like, there's no way I can talk in front of people. I used to cry if I got up and talked in front of people. I would just cry. I was in music and I had to memorize my music because I would cry when I had a solo. So, I just couldn't do it. And all these years later, now this is my message. It's just one truly of love. So,
Wow.
thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.